Hi guys, I hope you're well. My name's Daz Smith. Today's video was a March 31st, 2023 open remote viewing chat with the community. We discussed a little bit about front loading with remote viewing spurred on from a community Facebook chat on this subject, and I presented my thoughts on how front loading in ops targets has allowed my remote viewing to adapt and change for the better. We then moved on to the main topic, and this is Discord channels and their experimental remote viewing method named Cowboy RV. And this was enhanced with a live public demonstration of this in action from David Powell, a remote viewer. There's lots of great things to learn and use within your RV within this long but insightful chat. So enjoy it. And all the links to the presentations are down below. Enjoy this video. Namaste. See you next time. So what we'll do, guys, I'll just give it 2 or 3 minutes for any stragglers to come in, and then we'll carry on anyway. We usually go for a couple of hours, so we'll see how we get on today with what's happening. I was thinking the first bit of time we could talk about the front loading, because that's come up quite a few times on the Facebook groups the last couple of weeks. Bear with me a sec while I have more people in. So I thought if we, anyone wants to discuss anything on front loading, I also have a few things I could discuss on it and show some slides and some examples if you like. And then after that, after we spend about 20 minutes, 30 minutes on that, we can move to the Cowboy RV and see what the Discord people are playing around with that one. With any winning participants, of course, if David or anyone else wants to have a go at it.
Yeah, I'd love to try. Also, I got a couple questions for you because I'm messing around with the precognitive remote viewing forecasts and stuff. I just had a couple questions for you because I know you've done a lot of that. But yeah, I'm down to try for sure.
I haven't tried it myself, but I spent many years doing a similar thing to Cowboy RV before I came to RV. So yeah, it's not really my bag really. Excellent.
David, I've got like a quick PowerPoint on it, so I'll give you all the instructions you need. So I'm sure you'll have a stellar session.
Awesome. I hope so. I mean, I communicating in session with consciousness is my favorite part. So, but like I was telling Daz, like I love that everybody's here. It doesn't bother me at all. The most pressure's on my subconscious because I haven't touched any scotch on a Friday yet, just for this moment. So
actually, the rules of Cowboy RV dictate that you should probably have a couple of scotches. Actually,
this
was the birth of the method. Did involve a non-zero quantity of alcohol.
It might help, yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. Hold on a second.
I'd go for it. As I tell people, I once had one of my best RV sessions after a few vodkas. Didn't do me any harm. And it is Friday.
Session. Of course.
It's all in the mind anyway, right?
Yep.
I've never found any drug to block, spiritual abilities. And, I didn't try drugs to find out about that, but I did find out about it.
Well, I was talking to someone on the Discord who was taking NAC, and he said that was messing up his abilities. And then he tried doing a cowboy session, and he completely fluffed it up and just gave me 100 rubbish AOLs instead. So maybe NAC is one to avoid, but I haven't.
I'm not familiar. Is that a nootropic?
No, it's like a precursor to an amino acid or something.
Monoamino acid oxidase, I think. Inhibitor of.
No, it's N-acetylcysteine.
Okay.
It's a precursor to cysteine, but it binds glutamate, and it is an antioxidant. And is the antidote if you take too much paracetamol, apparently.
I had some questions about hypnosis and magic just coming out from a left field as we're spending a couple seconds here. But I have wondered sometimes when I'm watching a magician, it seems like they're doing remote viewing, like with some of their card tricks or when they cover things with a cup. So this one guy, he had these knives and they were straight up the sharp end, and he was putting cups over them, and only the person, his subject, could see which cup the knife was under. Then this guy took his hand and he started slamming his hand down on these paper cups, not asking the guy, but showing the guy that he could tell which cups had the knife and which ones didn't. And I think he was remote viewing the guy. He was remote viewing to see which cup the knife was under. And I wonder, I mean, I've seen other magic tricks like this. And I wonder if it's ever occurred to you guys that magicians might be using remote viewing with hypnosis. Like there's a hypnotic rapport often I see between the magician and the subject. They create one very quickly. And personally, I think they're doing some either close hypnotic rapport, intuitive, or remote viewing. Is that a kind of front loading too, I wonder? But anyway.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Anecdotally, it wasn't done under scientific pretenses, so who knows, but anecdotally, through hypnosis, people have been able to hypnotize a subject and have them read a sign that's placed behind somebody else as if they could see through the person.
Yeah, or they
so I mean, that mechanism's
tongue,
obviously there.
And the hypnotized person can taste what the operator or the person that hypnotized them is tasting. And they'll put the operator in a different, I read this in the Society for Psychical Research. They do research in hypnosis, and there's a lot of it in their periodicals. But yeah, they put a boy in a room and they were pinching the hypnotist. And finally, the subject got fed up. He just wasn't going to respond anymore. He'd had enough of this, with the pinching and the poking and everything. So, but yeah, I wondered if anyone had noticed this thing with magicians. I've been noticing it more and more. Or like Kreskin.
Well, keep an eye out now.
Kreskin did a demonstration. I don't know if you've ever heard of Kreskin. He's a Canadian mentalist. And he did a demonstration one time that I saw on TV where someone was reading a book. I guess it was the host of the talk show, had a book and he was reading it. And then Kreskin could tell what he was reading, like as if he was reading the page. And I mean, that seems to me like just straight up.
I think he uses, I think the amazing, I don't know much about that guy, but I think he does use intuition with whatever he's doing, doesn't he? I think he like a mentalist. Yeah, I mean, I think he goes out and finds things like he'll have somebody like hide something from him, and then he'll go somewhere and like use psychic ability to find it or something. I think he uses an intuition, or at least he claims to. I don't know much about him. No.
This thing where he's reading the book, he's reading the exact words the person is reading. I can't think of anything other than remote viewing that could be,
Definitely something we should maybe look into. I know people claim that Yori Geller is a bit more of a magician than he is an actual psychic. He's definitely a showman. But yeah, we don't know for sure on that one. I think we'll start now, and what I'll do is I'll keep an eye on and let any stragglers in anyway, because we usually get them throughout the meeting. So for the people that came late and didn't hear, we're probably going to do this in 2 parts today, and it depends how much anyone wants to talk on the first part, which is going to be, because there's been quite a lot of discussion on the Facebook groups about front loading and stuff. So I thought that would be interesting. And if anyone else hasn't got anything to say on it, I have a few slides that I could show about how front loading, I feel, has benefited the RV work that I've been doing. And then, after about 20 minutes, half an hour of that, it'd be good to go straight into looking at the Cowboy RV stuff that they do on Discord. And David's got a small presentation on that. And then I've chosen a couple of targets. David and no one else knows what they are at this point. So you're all very much blind to them. And yeah, a couple of people can, if they want to have a trial of that, can run through those and see how they get on with that one. If there are any questions, if you feel free to put your hand up and ask any questions, or interrupt someone if you can do it in a nice way using the voice. If you're a bit scared, or you don't want to use your voice, or you can't because you don't have a microphone, feel free to also type something in the chat window, and hopefully myself and someone else will pick that up for you, and we can get your question asked then as well. This is generally in like an open chat, so it's like everyone can contribute and say what they want. There are no real experts here. It's just a load of us in a community getting together and sharing our accumulated wisdom. So with that, then let's start on the front loading. As I said, some of you probably haven't seen the topics, but it's been on Facebook probably about the last couple of weeks or so. But it's a topic that comes up every 6 months or so in the community and bounces around. Do any of you guys have any initial thoughts or anything you want to say on front loading? No, so
it's super easy. It's never led me astray.
It certainly helps. Well, I'll tell you what then. Let me show you. I've got about 10 slides I put together on why I think front loading isn't detrimental to RV, and in fact, I think it's advantageous to improving anyone's remote viewing. So I'll show you those, and then we can discuss them. And I have some great examples as well, which I can show you how using front loading in crypto viewing and in operational work, I feel has allowed me to, no, not me, it's allowed my remote viewing to change dependent on the specific nature of the target to give better information. So what I'll do is I'll share some slides in on this. And as I said, I got some examples for you as well. And that's in a PDF, so I'll have to pull that up on a different screen to show you that. Okay, let me move some windows here a second, guys, and move some stuff around here so I can see your faces. So can you all see the screen okay here?
Yes.
Okay, so front loading, and these are just, as it says here, these are just my thoughts on this from my perspective, and that's for using, I don't use front loading other than in certain operational tasks, and some of these tasks I've been doing now for around about 19 years. It's been probably about the last 7 that I class myself as a full-time paid remote viewer at the moment. So it is now my main occupation. So I think useful front loading doesn't tell either the monitor or the remote viewer anything about the target. It tells both the monitor and the remote viewer where to put your efforts during the session and nothing more. As an example, if you know that the target is a life, and then when descriptors of buildings and all the kind of stuff like land and all that kind of stuff comes up in your session, you can still note them, but the team involved can concentrate their work on all the perceptions gained, which really only relate to life. And if I tell you the target's a life, all I have done is narrowed the target pool down to about 50 trillion targets. And that's past, present, and future life, human, animal, whatever. So although I'm telling you a category of information I want, it's not really giving you any specific information. So no specific information about any life has been imparted by knowing that the target is alive. You are still blind to the actual target. Now, usable front-loading examples are simple ones like the target is alive, the target is a location, or the target is an event. These are very useful because they impart no specific information. But bad examples would be, very specific, like the target is Paul H. Smith, or the target is at the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France, or the target is the Battle of Gettysburg. That's because they're giving you so much information up front. There's not much more you can compare afterwards. These are very bad because they have imparted specific information about those targets. So why do I believe that neutral front loading can be hugely beneficial to operational remote viewing practice? And the answer for me is that most of us use a method that is derived from CRV. And CRV was an experimental training technique that was never finished or scientifically validated. I feel this is a fact, and there are documents to prove this. Here's one there on the right-hand side here. CRV is good for teaching people as a hypothetical theory of how RV works. And it's good for setting up a structure for the remote viewer to start to understand and over time control their own internal intuitive processes. CRV and therefore its derivatives were not really created to, and they were never developed into being the best tool for reporting on operational needs remote viewing. And it notes that in this document here from 1985. And this is a close-up of it here. And I'll read this out for you just in case you can't see it a little bit. But it says the SRI subcontracted training described above or a program model thereafter is alone insufficient to prepare sources for operational intelligence collection. Even the best of RV sessions produced by the training method, though impressive, fall short of many operational expectations and requirements. The SRI subcontracted training format is beneficial in that it is learnable, it instills confidence, and it provides experience. And it may serve as a foundation for later development of operational capabilities. There are also other documents that support this as well. And there's one that I am put online here because it's quite big and it's quite damaging, and you need to go in depth into it and understand the reasons why, because some of it's political. But you can search for it, and it was published on 12th of March 1985, and it's a memo to Jack Verona. So it's in the same timescale, and that details the same kind of things really, that CRV is great for training, and they were getting great training results, but they weren't getting the results that they felt were good for operational use. I want you to know this isn't a bash of CRV or any of the derivative methods. I'm just highlighting something that I too found 13, 14 years ago when I started to go operational, in that CRV out of the box did not work well for me. It needed work. And that came along really with front loading. So the main bulk of the operational work that I've been a part of over the last decade is missing people work. I've looked at technology problems that needed fixes. Our main ones we look at now are cryptocurrency and market predictions. We also do lots of global top news stories or event predictions. And I have in the past done some medical applications, but I've only done about 10 of those. They were quite good as well. And also operational ones, we do mysteries targets as well. Now, all of these above, except the mystery targets, are so specific that they hugely benefit from non-invasive front loading. And this has allowed me to tailor and customize my RV to fit each different application. But most of it has also allowed my RV to spontaneously develop to suit these needs as well. So part of the work I've been doing for the past decade is missing people work. And I work for the police and the FBI on this, and I did round about 253 cases in total. And for the majority of those, the police forces and the FBI, they didn't want me to describe how that person went missing. They didn't want me to describe where, they didn't want me to describe what was happening to that person, if they were dead or alive. They essentially came back to us as a team of remote viewers and psychics and said, we just don't need any of that. We'll do that investigation as and when we need to. What we need from you as a bunch of talented intuitives is we just want a really good description of the location, sketches, and if you can provide a GPS coordinate. So an out of the box, non-front loaded CRV and RV session on a target like this, totally blind, would generate all kinds of data within its pages. And the majority of this would not be useful as needs to the client. Knowing I was working a missing person case, it allowed me to customize the RV data to include way more location descriptions, map sketches, and I even invented and developed these location finding tools to help me in this process. It also allowed me to put aside the incoming data that was not needed by the clients, much easier in the process as well. So let's start with some cryptos as well as more examples here. For the past 5 years, I've worked as part of an experimental project to use RV to produce crypto-related useful information for crypto viewing. Each month, we use RV to look at approximately 4 cryptos, or to look inside the cryptos, its team, its technology. We also try to predict the future use of markets of the crypto. When we first started this in 2018, there were roughly 3,200 cryptos. So it wasn't a massive target pool, when we were doing one a week. But it's bigger than most people's practice pools. As of today, we're looking at doing cryptos, and they're around like 23,126 in the target pool. When we first started looking at cryptos in the mid 2018, we did this totally blind, and cryptos were mixed in with normal targets. And to be honest, the first results were not very good. We had to find our ground. But in my opinion, the real value work started once we decided to let the viewer know that they were viewing one of the thousands of cryptos, which I call non-invasive front loading. Without this knowledge, the majority of our RV sessions included descriptions of buildings, structures, local environments, and all kinds of erroneous data. Now, in a normal situation, that data would be valuable, but in the case of a non-tangible, like a cryptocurrency, when we really only need market information and a few other details to confirm it, we just didn't need all that information. And doing it totally blind, it's like a shotgun approach. So now, or when I or we work a crypto target, I know the target is one of 23,000 cryptos, and this is growing as well. It grows at a rate of about 20 or 30 a week at the moment. The information tells me nothing specific about the individual crypto target, but to both validate my data and get relevant data for the consumer, I task myself to receive this kind of data below. And I do an initial market flow and feeling, and I'll show some examples of that. I then do description and sketches of the target brand and logo, and I do this to validate if I'm on target. Also, description of the target's primary CEO and then the corporate team. And I also do this to validate if I'm on target. Then I do description and sketches of the technology or project itself. And these three together I use to validate the target. And if I get a good sketch that corresponds with the logo, if I get good description of the CEO, which is accurate, and the team of people involved, and if I get a good description of the technology, if all of those for me feel like they're on target, I give a higher confidence then on these final two, which are the description of the combined group sentiments of the people who own that crypto. And we look at key future dates on that. So I look at the people that own the crypto 6 months ahead, a year ahead, 18 months ahead, and 24 months ahead to see how they feel about owning that crypto at that time. Finally, I also sketch how the crypto will perform. I do it for that month, for the next year, and then I sketch out how that crypto will perform for the next 5 years as well. So what I do with this, knowing it's front loaded, if the first three validate, if I get good logo, if I get accurate data for the primary, the CEO, the team, and if I really get some good hits on what the target technology is, gives me a higher confidence on these final two then, which is really the information that our clients want to know. They want to know if this crypto is going anywhere or if it's a dud. Now, if I was doing this target non-front loaded, this type of very specific data, which is tailored, would just not be possible. And it's also allowed me to customize my RV and allow it to naturally adapt for me and each situational need. And I'm going to show you some of these. Now, it's changed my ideograms as well. And this hasn't been something that I set out to do. It's spontaneous. Some people will try to tell you that ideograms are not visual, or that visual ideograms can't be learned, and that all kinds of superstitious and unfound rubbish with this. I think this is all biased and out of date and not correct. I think ideograms are natural and they develop, they mutate, and it's a mutating language that is personal to each of us. And they are an amazing tool which have unlimited uses, and I'll show you some of these in a second. Here are my original ideograms, and these come up generally in most normal blind targets, and they're pretty much what everyone has. And on the right hand side here's some example of Ingo Swan's ones as well. And as you can see, they're very similar. Water is a wavy line, mountains and hills and natural structures go up and down kind of thing. And man-made structures are linear right angle type things. What I found when I was doing the crypto targets and I was doing these front loaded using my CRV is that the ideograms stopped trying to show me gestals of the target because they just weren't needed anymore. But then it spontaneously mutated on its own accord, and it started to show me the flow of the crypto or its market flow. So essentially my ideograms went from these here, which are, are pretty set, but they change on a day-to-day basis depending on the target, to something completely different for cryptos. And they morphed to something like this, which I then identified and worked out was literally trying to show me what I needed about the market flow information about the cryptos. So here's some examples there. You might not be able to see these very well because the session's not in full here, but this was my RV session. As you can see, this is a very strange ideogram here. And I got some text here as well. I'm talking here about it feels like it's boring, it's moving sideways, but with a spike. And when I say a spike, I mean a spike of movement. Then I had this ideogram here underneath. As you can see here, it's very informational, showing a flow here, a very up and down flow with a big spike at the end. So I knew that it had a small, short rise. And then, I knew this rise would be this shaped as well. So this is all my ideograms, that spontaneously adapted over a period, something like 18 months, that happened in cryptos. And this also gave me the AOL here of December the 13th. And it just so happens that, on this news on December the 13th, the following month, Bitcoin rose to this highest level in more than a month. So that was a good correspondence on that one. A couple more here, and these again, front loaded. This is me doing my news for the month ahead. You can see here, I was trying to look at Bitcoin again, and that was the actual market graph with its jagged up and downness. And this is my, my sketch here of the jaggedness. It's not exactly the same, but there are peaks and troughs in roughly the same areas here. You have this big drop here, which is the big drop there. You have the little bumpy bit underneath, and then you have the dip, which goes to a rise. So it's very similar. On these ones, again, these are naturally ideograms that have just come from doing this front-loaded process. And you can see here very jagged market movements here, all showing some resistance. I wrote here, and then a drop, a big correction. You can see a big drop here on the ideogram for the market swell of Bitcoin. And in this month, when I was looking at this, Bitcoin price plunged 20%, wiping 10K off the value of it, in a matter of days. And I also wrote, 10K there as well. Now, what I can also show you is I can show you some PDFs of these as well. I'm sorry I couldn't put these in a PowerPoint. So here's some other examples of ideograms, again, front-loaded work that is allowed, because I'm working front-loaded, it's allowed my ideogram process and my RV process system to mutate and form and actually mutate into the tools that I need to do to get the job done. So this is an ideogram here. You can literally see how it's trying to show me the market flow here. And this was Digibyte in 2000, and the target was from 2018 to 2020. So it's trying to show there. It's not completely accurate. So, some are better than others in this. Here's another one here. And the target for this was a cryptocurrency called Tron. That was the actual market flow of it there, with a nice big peak up at the end there at January 21. And I had this nice big rise there in January 21. And, it was trying to show me the troughs with a big rise there in those ideograms as well. This one here was looking at the total crypto market cap. So this wasn't an individual crypto. It was all the cryptos together to see what the market cap would be over time. And this is the actual progression of it over the time scale of the target. And here was this wasn't so much an ideogram, this was just a timeline thing I did. But again, if I didn't know I was doing a crypto target, I wouldn't be doing a 5-year timeline for it because I wouldn't know to do one. And you can see here, I do have some key points here showing a big, nice rise there in 2021. And we had a nice big rise there in 2021. More front-loaded work here. This was for Hedera. This was the graph, which was our result here with this really strong upswell there, which I think it was showing me some of the ups and downs here, which was choppy, but then it says it has a slow rise and then there will be an end peak. So it's not completely accurate, but you can see it's getting there and showing the movement of the targets here. The ideograms want to show you. This version here was Dash, again, another cryptocurrency. This is the end result here over a 2-year period, ups and downs, but with this kind of like hockey puck, nice rise there. And you can see in this ideogram that this was different from the others because it did have square plateaus for this as well, which I think it's trying to show me these square plateaus there that are happening here before, before the rise up here, which is probably this part there. And see a coin here. This is just this is just me graphing out 3 years of see a coin, how I feel it would go. It's not completely accurate, but we are getting the peak where we got the peak here on that one. Are there any more? Yes, so this is engine coin. Now this one was pretty flat all the way along for over a 2-year period. Then all of a sudden you get a huge spike of activity on this one. And as you can see, the ideograms on this right off the bat were trying to show me this real interesting jaggedness, this jagged shape. And I wrote here, jagged, and it was reaching. I really do think it was trying to indicate this really jagged end point here. Getting near the end now. So stellar here. Not a very good progression on this one. Again, pretty flat, but then a real jagged rise. And this is when I showed you earlier, so this is the ideogram here. So it's showing a big, long peak here of literally nothing at all. And then some jagged peaks, a smaller one, then a larger one, which is, essentially this really long peak of nothing happening here. Then these jagged ones up here. And the initial ideograms from that started to, before it develops into this third one, were these ideograms here. So it showed me the market flow in its chaoticness with the peaks at the end. But it refined into that third one there, which I think is very accurate for that target. This is getting near the end now. This is another front-loaded session again. As I said, it's all cryptos. We know we're doing cryptos. But it allows me to do these timelines because I know I'm doing a crypto. So this was the result over a 2-year period. This was my graph. I think the graph's okay. It's not as accurate as it could be because I couldn't work out what was happening on the end here on this one. It was a bit unknown. The ideogram on that one just showed that it would rise slowly, and it'd be a slow burn and it would be gradual. Whereas if you look at how it started off here and how it rises up here, it is like a slow burn and it is fairly gradual. There's nothing dramatic on that one. And then one here, DNA, again, another crypto, very interesting line over a 2-year period on this one. Very ups and downs here, very not much movement, but very up and down. And then this real high peak there. I think I didn't really get the up and down nature here that much, but I did generate that you'd get the peak in the 18 months here. But the ideograms, they were really trying to show you that it was excitable, it was enthusiastic. And I think this might be near the final one now, so bear with me a second. So this is Kin, this is a small crypto, an altcoin we call it. Pretty flat, then a huge spike. I had this, up and down, but that's pretty flat, keeping close to the line there, and then a spike. But again, it started off with the ideogram, which was showing you there's some ups and downs, but it's pretty flat, and then it spikes. And there's some other ideograms, that kicked off as well. Pretty flat, and then it spikes. And then the spikes, and it shows you it's rising and all that. So that's it on the examples on that. I don't think there are any more slides, are there? So yeah, just these are a small set of my examples, and I have thousands of these across all the groups, missing people, cryptos and everything. And I feel that non-invasive front loading in ops works because it can allow, it can allow your RV to expand and develop way past what I think are the shackles and confines of taught methodologies. And it allows you to symbiotically mutate for each specific application. But this can only be done if it's allowed to do so, which is why I know that proper used front loading is key to RV's development as a viable operational tool. And as I said to you guys, I don't even think I'm doing it. I think there's something behind the RV process. And I think the ideograms want to expand on their own. I didn't say, when I started doing the cryptos, I didn't say to myself, I need my ideograms to stop being structures, life forms, all this kind of stuff. I need them now to be market flows. They just did it at their own accord. It's almost like there's an intelligence there. I can't say anything more than that. But all I'm saying to you is I think front loading in certain operational uses works, because if I was just doing a normal CRV session from any of these, I wouldn't know to do market flows, to do 5-year time plans, all that kind of stuff. So I think, front loading is a needed tool. Anyway, that's me, and that's my say on it. It'd be good to get your guys' opinions as well on this. We have some hands up. Deborah, do you want to go first?
And now I'm experiencing a little bit of nervousness. I think I forgot what I was going to ask. We're talking about front loading. Let me try and remember what it was. Someone else could go.
Okay, yeah. Dave, you were next.
Yeah, I mean, and just speaking from, like opposite end of the spectrum, you're 19 years in, I'm more towards the beginning end of it. But yeah, I would agree. Because I remember going through training. I mean, I agree on a few things, but first of all, with the ideograms, your ideograms do evolve. I mean, even if you're not doing cryptos, in the beginning, I'm just hoping to get a sense of a structure, a land, a water. Once you get going, you're like, oh shit, there's people, there's land, there's water. You see it all in there in the beginning, and you could break it out as far as you want to. And the more you go, the less you try and force connections, at least is the way it feels. I really don't know. I'm not a neuroscientist, but it feels like you're reaching for less data, and it feels like you're not forcing as many connections, so things kind of fall into place. Like you said with the timeline tool, that's not something I would incorporate unless I felt it's like you said. It's kind of one of those things. To me, it's almost like you have this really fancy drill. And depending on how you're planning on use it, you need to make some adjustments on those dials. Like if you're doing something super abstract, you're doing cryptos, whatever, but you're going into this session planning on pulling in clay and describing all this depth and stuff, it's a completely different mindset, even though it's not, like you said, it's not really front loading. You still have millions of options or whatever. But it gives you the opportunity to kind of make some adjustments, because every single session I go to, unless you give me something beforehand, I plan on drilling deep. I'm going to go in there deep with the hammer, deep with the drill, stage 6, clay, unless you tell me different. If you give me some cryptocurrency, I'm going to blow a hole right through that. I'm going to, I'm going to be on another planet by the time I get the feedback, and it's not going to be much helpful to whatever the project is. So I would say overall, I pretty much agree with what you had to say, Daz.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what you were saying there as well. And this is just something, I'm not saying it's for everyone, and I would only use this in operational stuff, and when I do mysteries targets, I'd rather they were just kicked in with everything else, because you don't need to know, you don't need a specific tool to find specific information on things like that. So they're best done blind, like most practice remote viewing session. But and I couldn't show you any examples because it's proprietary information. I'll see if I can get some, but like when I was doing the missing persons cases and the police said, look, don't send me, I used to do these RV sessions that went on for an hour, when I used to detail how the person went missing, their what state they were in, there if they were dead or alive, who committed the crime, all this kind of stuff. And the police just come to me and they're like, whoa, you're trying to solve the crime here, that's our job, we don't need that, all we need is to find the missing person, so please just give us locational details. And they said the best thing you could do is give us a GPS. So I had to try to work out a system where I could try to provide GPS coordinates from what I was trained in a CRV session. So I ended up creating a series of tools that I would use, so I essentially started customizing my RV process to give what I needed to in the specific information. And one of the tools I created, for an example, is on a sheet of paper, I would mark an X in the center of the page, and I'll write, this is the last known position of the missing person, because they always know where the last known location of that person was. And then using almost like dowsing, but with my pen, I would indicate a direct, and that position I would write, and I would say, this is their last known location and they're looking north. And I would indicate north on the page. And then, I would feel or sense where I felt on the page the direction of that person was, north, south, east, west kind of direction. And then I would also mark what I felt was the distance, 100 miles, 2,000 miles, that kind of thing. So that would give me general location details. And I literally had to start creating tools like this to give the specific information. And I'm just saying to you guys, I think front loading works in times because it didn't tell me anything about that missing person's location by knowing it was a missing person. It just allowed me to best use my intuitive skills to then provide that information for the client. Bear with me a minute, guys. I'm letting Don in. Hey, you must be feeling better.
Hey, Don. I remembered what I was going to ask now.
Yeah, go for it, Deborah.
Okay, so it's not a big deal, but my thoughts on the ideogram partly come from Dirk Gently. Do you guys know Dirk Gently? He's Douglas Adams' character from the Holistic Detective Agency. And I read the book years ago. And I mean, I read it 3 times in a row because it fascinated me. And yeah, it's in this book, the ideogram appears. He's looking for the answer to his question about time machine. That the answer is a time machine, but things are happening that are bizarre in the book, and he doesn't know why. So he says, I'm going to write the answer. And he writes an ideogram. And this was my first experience of the ideogram, and it's a very appropriate one for remote viewing because that's what he's doing. He's setting a target and he's drawing an ideogram for the answer to his question. And then, of course, the next thing that happens is a little child answers the question. Well, it has to be a time machine, doesn't it? You know? And so the feedback comes, but eventually he finds the time machines. Amazing book. But it brought this, I pondered this for the longest time. What the heck was that? Because he was also using hypnosis at this point in the book. There was this weird connection with hypnosis, and I haven't quite figured that out, but I realized this was the language of the subconscious. He knows that somewhere the answer is, and that his subconscious has access to it. He writes the language from his subconscious. And in my studies in brain and consciousness, in Dennett's book, he talks about how there are things that do not communicate, parts of our brain that don't communicate with each other internally. It's like you have to externalize this information for the other part of your brain to become aware of it. And this is where he thinks actually language came from. Language is this ability of our brain to take something we're aware of and make another part of our brain aware of it. I think this is what's going on with RV too, because we have this awareness, and then it comes from that other part of our awareness into our conscious awareness. So it's a connection thing. And the ideogram is the external manifestation so that our conscious mind can then have a look at it in some kind of weird way, just to even alert us that information's there. Look, it's there. Now figure it out, you know? So that's sort of my insight about the ideogram. And I find too in my practice, the ideogram has evolved. Like I've made it smaller. I used to make a really big ideogram and I'd have like a novel, you know, it's too much work to decipher it. So I shortened it. And then I discovered that I was having front loading. And I've made a section in my procedures to put the front loading in the interpretive part so that it's recognized. But I don't find it, that one instance where I shared, where I had front loading with the Duran, it was like a conversation I was having with my subconscious, with process that's going on in the Duran and how they're reporting, as opposed to the mainstream media and how they're reporting. And it seems that my subconscious, my awareness was, I've trained myself to look for the truth, and it just wanted to know the truth, and it went to the Duran. I've actually stopped watching the Duran now to try, because again, the last reading I did, the last session I did, I saw Zaporozhye being bombed. 3 guys in a plane. I don't even know if it's happened yet. I don't think so. But I'm taking a break because I'm just too much wrapped up. And we've been talking about this on Facebook. Okay, I'm getting off on an autistic tangent. Sorry, Anita's been talking about this, but anyway, that's my impression about the ideogram is the language of the subconscious, and it, by externalizing it, it gives other parts of our brain an ability to access that information, is what I think partly what we're doing.
Excellent. Thanks, Deborah. Anita, before we move on, yeah, we can answer a couple more questions, and then we're going to move on to the cowboy stuff. So yeah, go for it, Anita.
Yeah, so it's interesting what everybody always said. Can you hear me? Yeah. About the ideograms, I've been remote viewing for 5 years. I have never ever drawn an ideogram. What I have since the start is I look at the target number and colored shapes just flash and jump out at me. So I doubt that the ideogram is a universal truth of RV, because I have something very different. What I experience is I have blurry colored shapes, and each one is an element of the target site. And as I continue then to probe them, the blur is reduced and I can get perfect visual images. They become perfectly clear visuals. So for me, how I remote view seems to be some kind of visual accessing of the target site, which starts like having blurry eyes. So it's not like a symbolic communication is how Deborah describes the ideogram. So I have something very different, just wanted to add.
Thanks for sharing that. Anything else anyone wants to talk about on front loading, or should we move on to the interesting Cowboy RV?
Just a second, as I in the middle of a session, how it's better to present a front loading? It's like somebody call it the middle loading, not quite a front loading. So you're doing a session,
yeah,
and you are picking like 5 gestalts, and so just pick the gestalt and detailed more on that, only that.
So you're saying you're halfway through an RV session. You've done 5 gestalts or ideograms or whatever.
Yeah.
But how would front loading get introduced at that stage?
Can I answer that?
Yes, please, Henny.
Yeah, we do mid-loading with Lori, and generally mid-loading is the same as front-loading. It's the same wording. You are just not getting that information before you start the session, but whenever you've gone enough, you write to your project manager and say, okay, I'm ready for mid-loading. When you are on a break in your session, it can be whatever pages long, and they send you the exact wording what you would get if it was a front-loading. The target is a process, describe the target. And then you restart your session indicating that you got this mid-loading. And then whenever you come to a point in your session when you recognize that this might be a process, then you know that you are honing in, you are going to continue describing elements of what you find might be related to describing a process. So it's exactly the same as getting a front loading. The only difference is you get it when you have done some session already on your target.
Okay, thank you, Henny. That's
welcome.
Good to remember and know, of course. But I was wondering also if you have like not a general description, but you have like concept ideas which are very, very well overlay over the targets, let's say, or similarities, very much similarities with the target. So you don't, if you go there, you will not, you describe too much, you will reveal too much from the target. So how would you do? It's like you touched on the target very much, you describe the most of the elements there, of the gestalts, but it's not quite correct. So, but you get the contact with the conception or with the concept of the target. So what would you do? Like you go to describe the sensation of the fear, or describe the historical theme, and go move more detail more on that, on what would you do on this case?
I think that's retasking. Yes,
Okay.
that would be, because mid-loading you can get without your project manager ever seeing a page of what you have done, because
Okay.
you don't have to know, or he or she doesn't have to know what you have, because the mid-loading is the mid-loading. What you are talking about is retasking, in which case your project manager is going to be aware of your data and is going to go through your data and is going to tell you what to focus on, but that's already retasking, and that's using elements of the information that you provided.
Okay, Henny, thank you.
Theo, your hand was up next.
Yes, I would like to add a little bit. When we are looking back in time, we should talk about the signal to noise ratio when we're talking about front loading. So in the 70s, as an example, on the SRI in the beginning, the first step that needed to be undertaken was to ascertain the average ratio of signal noise among natural occurring psi perceptions in both gifted and non-gifted persons. And they came up with a 20% signal to 80% noise. Later with training, it was changed up to 65% and much more. When we are talking about noise, what could be everything noise? Noise could be everything. What is around us can be sounds outside. And noise is also analytical overlay. And if we're trying to look what could lead to an analytical overlay, so we've got a psychoenergetic input. It comes to a subliminal level, it becomes for us as viewer feeling, and then in the hope that we have gotten remote viewing output in the end. But we have got different sources of noise. Can be beliefs, labels, memory compositions, creative additions, imaginations, etc. This is all noise overlay. And every time when we have some additional information and are not completely blind anymore, we are triggering this process from alone, especially for beginners or people who are not so experienced. As an example, like you, you're starting to have, you had here one thing like, it is about a missing person. Even if we try not to think about that, our brain, from neuroscience perspective alone, is starting to jump in and trying to find patterns in the brain what can have to do with a missing person. Or it is about out of 23K cryptos. So it's really a great art to try to have no analytical overlay to this point. So out of my perspective, I think the best case would be to be fully blind, because we increase, right? We decrease with the source of possible noise. So it's an experiencing. I want to add that. So we are working most of the time completely blind, and as a good remote viewing trained person and experienced person, it is possible to work without front loading and to get this directly information what you talk now about. So, but front loading does not. What's the name of that? 1 second. Does not violate at least a blind protocol. So yeah, that to the point of front loading. I would personally prefer every time to not be front loaded in any kind. To your first thing, what you said about CRV, I've got to take a little bit the point of the CRV, partly at least, when you talked about the AIR report. And that it was only all in the training process and it had no more value. That's not completely true. I've got the paper here, but I cannot screen share, I guess. The target operational users, they were be interviewed to this time, and the three letter agencies. And I take here only a few one. And they was asked if they would be ready to have a future use of Stargate services. Appendix X, a user would be willing to use Stargate type service in the future. The other one, user desires to continue using Stargate type service if the program continues. The other one, user would be willing to use Stargate type service in future. I've got a sheet here, but I cannot show it, so only for information. So it's out of my perspective, not exactly. So it was more useful as it looks in the public for many other reasons. Yeah,
there are two sides to that debate, undoubtedly. You know, and as I said, either of us could show documents that show whether it was operationally useful. The document I showed, I don't know if I caught you right, Oz. It wasn't the AIR report. It was an internal memo from the lead project manager from the military to Jack Verona, and the other document that I didn't put online because it's too long to do so. That's just as I would say damaging as well. But as I said as well, it did have, and you know, we have to be careful of this. There were some political reasons behind all the decisions that were being done as well. But you know, there are documents. You know, there are documents that in the Stargate archives that do say that there was good operational use from CRV. And we know that we can actually see some results. And I think John Knowles is actually compiling a database of these at this very moment on that. But there are documents as well, which you also have to, you know, acknowledge that come from people that were paying for the projects, and they said that there were operationally the, you know, CRV. They were essentially saying the training worked, but CRV wasn't a good operational tool. And my experience is that that's true. You know, and that's why front loading for me in operational targets gets better specific information. But you know, it's horses for courses. Everyone's different. You know, you got to go with what you go with. But I am aware, and I do believe, and you know, you are correct that early students would find front loading harder than experienced students because it would introduce that element of noise in their RV. You know,
yeah, exactly.
It would. I don't know. I don't trust this guy, Daz. I think you should.
I don't know this guy yet. I don't know, Dave.
As you know, and with all RV as well, you know, it's all different for each of us. You know, some things work for some of us, some things don't. Some methods work for some of us, others don't. So we just have to go with, you know, what works. I just presented what worked for me, and how I found that allowing me to be front loaded did make my RV completely morph and mutate on its own to fit the situational needs, which is good because yeah, I just couldn't, you know, I couldn't do a blind RV session and get timelines for when an event would happen like that without knowing that I would, or being prompted by a monitor that I have to do a timeline. But you know, all good stuff. We desperately need to move on because we've only got an hour to go on to the cowboy stuff. So is there any, Deborah, is it
I just wanted to reply to Theo just quickly.
Okay.
Because I understand, like, it's perfect if you don't have any front loading noise. But I mean, like in my case with the Duran, I didn't even know I was front loaded until I looked at the feedback. So like can we truly purely avoid front loading? Because seems like, well, I was front loaded when I had the dream about the green alien. I was front loaded by watching Farsight. And a lot of my experience with remote viewing or with anything psychic information often has front loading. Like it seems to me it's harder to avoid front loading than not, is what I'm trying to say. That it's really the scientific situation where you're going to avoid the front loading. But I think in most RV, I'm just going to make a broad hypothesis. This is a hypothesis, but it seems to me most of it is front loaded, whether you want it to be or not. Like it's almost impossible unless you're in a pure scientific situation with blind monitors and you have a lot more control over the situation of the viewer. say they're in an isolated room with headphones. I mean, yeah, but in an ordinary situation, like with my experience, it's hard to avoid front loading, especially if you're doing future forecasts. How can you not be front loaded? You know what I mean? That's what
a common way, especially in controlled remote viewing, is that you become just a tasking number. This is most of the time 9-digit numbers, more or less random, and there's tied and intentionality behind so-called tasking. And then if the viewer becomes only this number, it works through that numbers, then you're completely blind and you're avoiding completely front loading. I hope that answers your question.
You're saying that just having the coordinates makes you not front loaded, which I can agree with. That blinds you right away. And yet if you know you're looking into the next month, you still know that. It's hard not to know that, right?
That's
front loading is provided to you as a viewer. If you just know that psychically, then it's either AOL or target data.
Works fine for viewers that are trained, in my opinion.
Bear with me, guys. I'm just letting some people in. Okay, so we need to move on. I'm sorry about this. If we got time afterwards, we can revisit some of this stuff. But we really should get to the cowboy stuff. We can go a bit longer than 2 hours if you guys want to. Anyway, I'm online until late in the morning. Anyway,
yeah.
So David, do you want to go ahead on the cowboy? Have we got a yeehaw to start this off or anything?
Yeah, we can do yeehaw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Let me share my screen. Oh wow, Zoom's gone over there. All right, can you guys see that? Okay.
Yep, see that? Yep.
Sweet. So we've had some mention of Cowboy RV, and this is going to be a hopefully quick presentation on what it is, where it came from, and how to do it. And we're going to rush through this fast. We'll do questions at the end. So hopefully we'll have some time left for a few brave volunteers to give it a go. At the end, I got a couple of exercises so that everybody can dip their toe into the water. We can do it as a group thing. Should be fun. So what is Cowboy? Where's my slide? Yeah, there's my spinning cowboy. So you might have heard that phrase, the Tao that can't be written is not the true Tao. In the same way, there's no rules about Cowboy. Cowboy's really more about what you're not doing than what you are. You could call it a meta methodology if you wanted to sell courses or something. We don't, because we're too punk rock for that. So we've got a stack of concepts that go into RV when we do it normally, right? We've got remote viewing, we're perceiving what isn't available to our physical senses. We've got the protocol, blinding, deliberate viewing, recording, feedback. Then we've got the methodology like CRV, TDS, whatever. Then within CRV, we've got stages. Within those stages, we've got tools, like we might read somebody's mind or do a little timeline or whatever, right? So Cowboy is kind of getting into that method stage of that stack, saying Cowboy is the context within which you can do tools from any method you've learned. Like you were talking, Daz, about CRV et al. Being good training tools, but not necessarily great operational tools. Many people here will have learned CRV or one of its derivatives and have a whole load of tools at their disposal, right? But usually we're drilled into only executing those in very specific contexts. In Cowboy, we're executing them more or less whenever the hell we feel like it. So, what postmodern hellscape spawned this madness? It was the remote viewing Discord. You may recognize this bunch of Muppets at the bottom. Josh is at the top there. He's here tonight, and hopefully he'll chip in if I say anything super wrong about Cowboy. I'm there at the bottom on Kermit. Myself and Josh, we both are remote viewers, but also occultists. We do magic and mysticism and all that good stuff. So we were hoping to bring the benefits of the remote viewing protocol to the practice of magical evocation, which for people who don't practice magic just means talking to woo-woo stuff, right? And then we realized, like, hey, this works. Why don't we broaden it out and use the tools, you know, the timelines and the mind reading and all the RV tools that we have in this context too. So it has a stupid name and it's stuck and it kind of works. And we were doing this for a while every night on the voice chat on the Discord. We were doing cowboy targets. Everybody was having a go, and Daz was getting super bored of it because he'd been remote viewing all day. And we said, "Hey, Daz, do you want to just have a go instead of being grumpy at us?" And he said, "No, good sir, I'm not particularly interested in participating in this activity." So that is where the name Cowboy comes from, and we're keeping it. So the Discord has students of all methods and none. There's lots of experimentation and mixing and matching of stuff going on all the time. Some of it is serious and really cool, like machine learning applications in remote viewing and financial ARV and serious high effort things like that. A lot of it is also messing around and unlearning and breaking the programming that we've given ourselves by training these strict methodologies, right? We learn so much dogma, and there is a lot of dogma in RV. Like, you can't remote view numbers, which is bullshit. You absolutely can remote view numbers, you know, but people get taught that and it's not true. So how do we know what is dogma and what is not? By trying things out. Here we have the elastic band visual perception method, which didn't work the one time we tried it. We have 2 sessions on toilet paper and kitchen paper, and then somebody who tried scrying into their soup bowl for a session. The toilet paper works best if anybody's interested. So let's get to, you can see the purple on the slides has gone away now. That means we're getting serious. So some details about what we've done so far, and we'll try and dig into it. The method itself was kind of inspired by something called the Estes method, which involves using a spirit box and a blind channel, if you like, to talk to spirits and woo-woo things, right? I was watching a video of the Adventures in Woo Woo podcast with Jason Mendel doing this. I invited him, but he was doing his hair tonight, so he couldn't come. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we, instead of using the spirit box and the blindfold and stuff for the channel to provide blinding, we just use the RV protocols so they don't know who they're speaking to. And that was the inception of this thing, was to talk to stuff, not to do remote viewing tools. And we found the talking to stuff worked really well. The very first session, I was the viewer and Josh was tasking me. I was working completely blind, other than I knew it was something we could have a conversation with. And he tasked me Doctor Strange, the movie magician. And I got a really cool sketch out of it, which I did kind of after the session from memory, of him holding something. And I said, I think it's like a dinner plate or something. He's got this big round thing in front of him. And we asked him, what do you think of our magical practice? And he said, I think it's really sweet that you're doing something. Bless you. So even fictional characters will react within character. We've done a few of those. We've done Mickey Mouse. We did Venom. I don't know. We've done a few. Batman. That was a really strange one. Don't connect to that. It's odd. Deities is a more traditional thing to be doing with evocation. We've done classical ones. Hades was an absolute banger, really interesting and not at all spooky. Freya's very cool, actually quite scary. Dionysus was even more of a layabout than you'd expect. All of this done blind, super good fun and very interesting. Who else have we done here? Humans. Obviously, you can do this with humans. We've done dead ones. We've done alive ones. We looked at why Elon Musk bought Twitter last April, and then when his text messages got leaked or released as part of whatever that court case was, we kind of got confirmation on some of that data. If anybody really wants to know, you can find the session transcript hiding on the Discord somewhere. But the TLDR was he's going to make Twitter into an everything app, like like whatever that Chinese one is, where you pay for stuff on it. It has everything all in one place and becomes a big monopoly. That's his plan. So you heard it here first, maybe wrong. We can also do, which is super interesting, mythical and fictional people, right? And Daz, you were saying about ideograms evolving. My ideograms evolved because I was getting tasked so many of these, like, oh, do Jesus of Nazareth, do whoever else. that I now have an ideogram for this is purely fictional, which looks like some stairs with some land at the bottom of it. And I have a story person, which is the loop, the classic loop for a subject, except it's spread out in 3D. So it's more like a spiral. Because we execute ideograms, if we do them at all, ideally without paper, you get 3D, right? So the subconscious seems to react, or the psi system seems to react to that by going, sure, hell yeah, let's do 3D ideograms now, which is cool. We've done financial stuff, looking at, what's the Fed going to say in the morning. We've done all manner of esoteric things. I did one on the Akashic records. So not a thing you can speak to, but just doing a cowboy on it. And that worked super well. We've also done cowboy job interviews. We had a mod position on the server. We needed a new mod. But Deborah, you mentioned Douglas Adams earlier. I think this quote's attributed to him. I may be wrong, that anybody who would seek out power is least suitable to wield it, something along those lines. So we weren't going to advertise and say, who wants to go on a big power trip? We drew up a short list. The other mods added a few people to it and randomized the order and gave me numbers 1 to 6. And I just sat there and waved my hands around in the air. And there's ethical questions with doing that. I did ask consent from whatever the psychic representation of those people was, and stuck to questions relating to the job. But that process worked super, super well. And the choice that we made was excellent, I think. So we also did Ingo. That was great. Ingo was dishing out bespoke remote viewing advice to anybody who popped into voice chat at the time, some of which was super interesting. I was the viewer on that one. It was very cool because, in fact, actually, in that case, I wasn't even blind, but the words coming out of my mouth were a surprise to me. Not remote viewing, but everything was the same with this process, except I was unblind. So it was more like a traditional evocation with these remote viewing tools, if you like. So it had kind of gone full circle. So now what? How do we teach this? Because Josh and I have both come from the background of experience with all sorts of magical practices and all sorts of stuff that isn't your just learned CRV and never even meditated a day in your life kind of thing. So the problem we found when we tried to get other people to do this is that we'd made lots of assumptions and had kind of internalized skills that we weren't really aware that we were using. So we were doing it, but we didn't really know how. And as more people have had a go at it, it's kind of surfaced more and more things that we need to be aware of, right? So I'm going to move on now to do some cowboy concepts, and we'll go through a few of the things that we've identified as important and interesting and useful in cowboy. Now, because we're being super postmodern and hand wavy about this, you can change these. This is just where we're at now, right? We are super not about telling people what to do or how to do it here. The whole point of this is to be breaking boundaries and thinking outside the box. You can see there the Professor X from the X-Men movies zooming through psychic space. It does sometimes feel like that. Super cool. Underneath is the best that we could manage to reproduce that. And we'll revisit the person there who will remain nameless unless he wants to out himself. So no paper, no pen. We want to stay in a flow state and allow the viewer to focus on the data completely, not focus on recording or methodology or presentation or anything, to just stay 100% signal line. So in terms of the concept of bilocation, that is how much the viewer is in the viewing room and how much at the target, much more at the target. Wear a blindfold. You can see our beautiful model down there is using the near rhythm magnetic brain stimulation headband thing. This thing, these are fantastic. Use one of those, use binaural beats, use whatever. Get in the zone. Use audio recording. That's really the best. I think a lot of sessions we've done with a scribe, so there's somebody else there taking notes, which makes for a much better written transcript, because if you do an audio recording, you never get around to transcribing it. But of course, errors can creep in and the viewer can move too fast. So audio seems to be the sweet spot for how to record sessions. AOLs, we love AOLs now, right? AOL is not a bad thing. We're not putting it to one side. in the opinion from the magical side of things is that our subconscious mind or our higher self or whatever the hell it is communicates in a symbolic language of pictures and feelings and emotions and sensations and symbols and all that kind of stuff. And that's how it speaks, right? So if it gives us AOL, we just do a stage 5 on it, you would say, right? What does that mean to me? What does that represent to me? How does this feel? Unpick the thing where you are. Don't put it to one side and ignore it or go, oh, it's stage 1. I'm not allowed to say that. You go, that's data. What does it mean? And you unpeel the onion there and then. And if it starts to feel boring or off target, stop and move on. Use your existing tools from whatever methodology, or brilliantly, whatever methodologies, plural, you know. You've got tools, you've got mind reading, gingerbread people, sketching tools, relationship diagrams, timelines. You've got all of this cool stuff. Use it whenever it's appropriate, whenever it interests you, whenever your monitor feels like it. You don't need to wait until a particular stage. You know, if you even executing a paper session, you can draw an ideogram and go straight into investigating somebody's gut health, and that works, and you can do it reliably. You don't need to widen the aperture or go down any of these other models, which are great training tools, but they're dogma. They're not the reality of how to use these psychic abilities. So structure be damned. And if that triggers anybody, then good. But sometimes structure not be damned. If you want to use it, if it works, use it, but don't use it because it's the rules and that's the right way or whatever. Use it because it's useful. Technology, I mentioned already, neorhythm, nootropic drugs, we use those, booze, we use that, whatever, right? Use whatever tools are going to work, and don't worry about producing a 10-page typed report. I see you're getting in the zone there, Dave. Don't do it while you're driving. Josh did it while he was driving and got possessed by the Nepalese forest shaman spirit. That was super cool. And in that session, we discovered that the Nepalese forest shaman spirit doesn't know how to drive. That was super fun because it was reading the minds of the people who were there. We had like 5 or 6 people there, or everybody was blind. And Josh was there interacting with this thing. And there's just 5 people there who have no idea what's going on, going, ask it this, ask it that. And after a while, it started answering their questions before they'd ask it, and he'd say something. And then they'd be like, oh, shit, I was just going to ask. It was great fun.
For the record, RV sessions done behind the wheel are referred to as CRV. But I cannot legally recommend the practice to anyone else, though.
I definitely don't recommend doing it. That's why I put it in quotes like this.
That being said, I have plenty of successful trials, but I'll leave it at that.
We can come back to driving later, actually. Have no fear, right? We'll get into a little bit more detail on this, I think, on the next slide. Yes, on the next slide. So CRV structured methodologies, they're a big investment. They take hours of your time. If you're wrong, it's a pain in the ass. Should I write this down? Is it an AOL? Does it go here? Does it go there? Blah, blah, blah. We are committed to individual data points because we've got all these questions we have to answer, right? We've got all this structure we've got to go through. I need to do this. I need to do my A, my B. What does it smell like? I need to answer all these fucking questions over and over, you know. Here, get what you get, move super fast. If you get some data and it's wrong, I don't care. Move on. If it's right, I still don't care. Move on. Go quickly, quickly, quickly. We have a quote from Jeremy Clarkson there because the idea here is to trigger people, and hopefully that will work for at least 50% of people who've heard of him. We have no time for AOLs, and even if we did, we like AOLs now, right? We want to be in the zone. We want to be in a flow state, immersion. We've got this picture here, Tom Cruise, nice Scientology reference, full circle again, whizzing around with his big touchscreen fancy thing that looked so cool in 2000 and whatever it was when that movie came out. That was a long time ago now, but that touchscreen thing's still cool. This is kind of how I do Cowboy, not with Scientology, but by interacting with informational concepts in my visual kinesthetic space. And we'll get into that quickly. We check the time. Yeah, we got time. We'll get into that soon. So ERV, very immersive. I find I can barely even talk without breaking the trance. Fantastic visuals, but is it a whole load of use? Yeah, sometimes specifically, but it's a pain in the ass, right? So with this, we're not getting ERV level immersive experience, full Technicolor IMAX zoomy astral projection kind of vibe that you get with ERV. This is still qualitatively more like paper session, but you're just super deep into it with a blindfold on, focused on nothing other than the data, with your working memory full of your kinesthetic visual or knowingness workspace, right? So you're not concentrating on the room or the pen or the paper or the structure or anything, just the target. So it's somewhere between paper and ERV in that way. Oh yeah, engagement. I mentioned having a workspace. This isn't a magical thing. This is just a space. It's like putting papers on a desk. You have an imagination, you have a working memory. Hopefully most of you can visualize things, at least vaguely. If you close your eyes, you can touch your nose. And this way we don't get arrested on the way home. And also it demonstrates our kinesthetic space. You can put things in your kinesthetic space which are not parts of your body. You can put things in there. So if you close your eyes, I'm going to put a little trash can there. And it's still there. I know it's there. The kinesthetic space is like it's like RAM in your computer, right? You can put stuff in it. So if you can't visualize, you can use your 3D volume of space around your body as a short-term working memory, like a whiteboard or a pinboard or something, to stick elements of the target up on and rearrange them. Look at the relationships between them. I'm going to put all these things over here. I'm going to bring this thing to the foreground, put that thing to the background, put these in order of importance. What does that look like? Just like Tom Cruise, but obviously cooler. So monitoring is super useful. Right, for learning, we internalize method. Our mind can stay out of a beta state. I think anybody who's tried to learn CRV or a paper methodology from the off will remember when you screw up your session because you're going, where do I write this? What do I do next? Is this an AOL? Where do I write my AOLs? Where does this go? Oh no, I wrote my page number in the wrong place. Will this stop the magic from working? Oh God, what should I do? Right? This is beta mode analytic thinking that we want to avoid the shit out of. We do this with paper sessions by drilling the thing until we do it automatically. Then we don't need to think about it. We never have any doubt. Eventually, we kind of get comfortable with the fact that it doesn't really matter that much, but we're still trying to do it correctly. But never mind, we memorized it, so it's automatic. Right here, we're taking all the rules away. We're taking the structure away. We're just doing whatever the fuck we want. And then that leads to activation of the kind of intellect and the beta thinking mode going, oh no, what should I do next? Now I need to kind of step outside the data and analyze the data. What we have found is that with practice, you don't need to do that. You can internalize no method and be in a flow state where the intellect isn't coming online and getting all analytical about the target data. You just go, yes, Fabian, anarchy. Postmodernism, I think, is a nice way to say this. So you see something interesting and you're using your intuition. You're going, oh, that's interesting, because you are not attached to individual data points. Nothing's important. Everything's like, oh yeah, let's look there. Oh, that doesn't make sense. Let's look somewhere else. That must have been wrong. Whatever. Because you don't care. Everything is such low cost. It's zero cost, right? That's interesting. Go do it. Is this a person? Oh, I don't know. They feel kind of squishy. Maybe. Let's look at their health. What's inside there? Oh, what the hell has this person been eating? It's like sand. And then like 5 minutes later, they're like, oh yeah, it's a mummy, you know? But maybe it's just like, oh no, that's not a life form, or this is multiple life forms. Oh, that it relates to the story. Fine. And because you're not in that regimented step-by-step methodology, it's okay to dive around like that, jump around like that. And when you get to the point of not worrying about the analytical stuff, not worrying about where you're going to go next and just doing it, then the beta mode can shut up and shut down. So you can be in alpha, theta, bit of delta, depending on what your theory of choice is, right? So multiple monitors is fun. I mentioned about having like 5 blind people there asking questions to something that the viewer's blind to as well. Super fun. The viewer can chill out. As the viewer, you can drive if you want. If something catches your attention, be like, I want to go look at that. I'm going to go look at that. If nothing's happening and you're saying and being silent for a while, maybe somebody wants to chip in with a question and help you out, whether or not they're blind. So again, you have the best of both worlds, no strict rules, right? So if hopefully that makes sense. We are now going to do a exercise. Anybody can do this. If you have aphantasia, you might need to kind of paraphrase my instructions a little bit. Oh, wait, let's go back to this one. Cool. So the first one is close your eyes. So if you're sitting comfortably, we're not going to do any remote viewing now, by the way. This is just a kind of warm-up thing. So I'll read all this stuff out, right? You don't need to memorize it. So close your eyes, take a breath, center yourself, just get chill. I'd like to describe this as if you're baking, you know, you put the bowl on the scales and then you press the tare button, the 0 button, to take away the weight of the bowl before you add the flour in. Do that with your body, right? So you're like, hey, take stock of everything, get to just a nice neutral, relaxed state. So then get your dominant hand, whichever one you write with, lift it up, point your finger out, and draw a circle in front of you in shiny energy. It can be blue, golden, whatever color you like, really, it doesn't matter. So we want to persist that. Keep your eyes shut. It should be floating there in front of you. If you move your head, it should stay where it is, right? It's in space, an informational construct that you've created. Now you can reach out. If you're lucky, you should be able to feel the edges of that circle with your hand in space. So if you're lucky, you should be getting some kinesthetic feedback with that. You can grab onto it, move it over there. In fact, actually, make a copy of it. Make 2 of them. Whatever, right? You're like Tom Cruise, but better. So this is an introduction to manipulating stuff within your workspace. This is the kind of thing that magicians need to do the whole time, because you spend the whole time creating and manipulating and calling up things inside non-physical space, right? So now that you've got your circle and you can move it about and you can perceive it, now get rid of it. Just gone, bye-bye. That's it. Congratulations, you have a workspace. If you have aphantasia that is sucky and impossible for you, then I'm really sorry, but please get in touch, because I'd love to know how we can generalize this to people who have like 0 visualization ability, because obviously it is going to be a bit different.
If I may, if you are someone who has issues visualizing things, in my experience, I have more success with, it's hard to explain, but just knowing that a thing is there. Don't focus on literally seeing the circle, just know that you've made the circle, feel it there. Kind of like how you might feel someone looking at you from across the room, even though your back's turned, etc. That's the best I can offer.
Cool. So let's move on and we will make target contact. So same as before, but when we draw the shape in the air, we're going to draw an ideogram instead of a circle. So it is going to execute on its own. When the very first time I tried to do something like this, it made me realize that I couldn't actually trigger the data without using a paper and pen, because I trained so much doing CRV and derivatives. I needed to get a slice of dead tree and poke it with something. Otherwise, I couldn't be psychic, because that's how I drilled myself over and over again. And it's actually insane that it took me so long to realize that limitation. So a shortcut workaround hack for that is to use your finger and poke the air, poke an imaginary surface, right? So where you drew that circle before, now we're going to draw our ideogram. And there's your surface. You're going to poke it with your finger. And I'm not going to draw an ideogram now, because I don't want to give you a bunch of AOL or front loading, because we've got a real target here. Okay, so if everybody's ready, close your eyes, take a deep breath, center yourself. So I'm going to read you some target coordinates. Stick your finger out and execute an ideogram. The coordinates are 4756-5355. So draw that ideogram, allow it to hang in the air or in your space or in your knowing. It's now a persistent informational psychic object that you're going to keep within your awareness and manipulate, read and write and fiddle with. So now get your non-dominant hand, the one you don't prefer to write with, and move it over that ideogram you've drawn and ask yourself, what does this feel like? See what vibes. Use your hand floating over the ideogram as a trigger, just like we would probe something with a pen to get some data. Float your hand over it as a trigger. Oh, what can I feel? What does this feel like? Right? get a few descriptors. Get none. If you have an AOL, oh, what does that remind me of? Why is it like this? What does that mean to me personally? Dig into that. So sit with this. If anybody wants to, sorry, I need to go to the next slide here. So if anybody wants to share, does anybody have any data, any feelings on this? If you keep it there, you can ask it questions. If you grab onto that ideogram, pull it towards you and hold it in your non-dominant hand as if it's a physical object and say, hello, what's your shtick? Feel, what's the vibe of this? Vibe check it, right? Move this thing about. Chip in, overcome the fear of being wrong, right? You're breaking boundaries and getting outside the box here, so be brave, don't be scared.
Well, to me, my initial impression is I don't even know if I'm on the signal, but water and something I can go into. But I've also seen a pillar-like shape with some extensions on the top. But it's primarily the water thing. It's something like sliding into like a water slide type of space. I don't know. That's what I have anyway.
I feel like I have a structure. I feel like wooden textures. I feel like an opening. I also have this sliding feeling also. It's interesting she mentioned that. Boxy.
David, there are quite a few comments in the chat window from people as well.
Oh, sorry, let me check. So Astral Antares says life form doing something feels warm and rounded. Rich says a curved structure. Fabian, first impression like a musical instrument stringed. Rich, wavy. Don, a lot of loops like a spring or slinky. Sarah, powerful movement in the air. Paul, a bright life form. James, seeing depression, something like lollipop going down. If that's an AOL or a euphemism, I think you should examine that. Elizabeth, sharp aerial, whipping downward, jagged, black, rough, cold, angular, kind, rough. Sand, sponge-like, warm, wet. Dimmy, jumping around like a nervous life form. Silka, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Green, white, silver, also the loop, energetic. Dave, feels covered. Henny, two bright circular metallic elements emitting energy like light. Red polished angular foldable metallic mainframe. So a few people have got data which is on target. Are you ready for the reveal? Maybe you guys won't recognize this target. Dun dun dun. Here you go. Anybody know this guy? And he said mainframe. We got a few people with life form there. Well done to you guys. Lots of people getting loops. So everybody who said loop, you know, what's an ideogram for life form look like? So you can take that level of interpretation a little bit further. I got a loop. What does that mean? It's a life form. Easy. So I got my slides in the wrong order. So let's hide Bill Gates and go back to this one. Where next? Conversations, which hopefully we're going to demo. But here's a very brief and incomplete list of stuff that you can do in Cowboy, right? Stage 3 to 5 stuff, obviously. Stage 5 everywhere, every AOL. What is this? It's data. We don't put it to one side. Relationship diagrams with your workspace. Oh, I've got a life over here. I've got multiple lives over here. How does this person feel about these people? And then draw that line in your head and probe it. What data is in there? Create informational constructs and then pull data out of them. You're creating the lens that you're going to interpret the data through. So make it whatever intuitively seems like it's going to be useful for you. I know that sounds waffy as all hell, but I think that's what we're doing. topography, air modeling, feel the shape of it, timelines, gingerbread people, consciousness map, read minds, inspect people's stomach contents and their bunions, work it, use your imagination, right? It's your job to phrase the questions you want to ask in symbolic terms that is going to make sense to your subconscious mind or the psi system or however you want to conceptualize that, right? So the better your relationship with that part of yourself is, the more success you're going to have. So apologies for the repeated Bill Gates. And does anybody have any questions? Coral asked what his thing was, and it said it would like to be a lot more natural. Wow, I mean, anybody who saw that photo of him posing next to the computer from the 80s, he could get more natural.
David, a question. Is it just, do you use this method for any kind of target, or is it just for life form, or do you know what I mean? Life form or consciousness based things you can have chats with?
We'd use it for any now, because we started off just wanting to do it for having chats with things, but to have blinding involved. And then I can't remember what happened, but I imagine what happened, because this happens quite often, is you're asking your target a question and they're kind of going, I don't really know, or they don't want to think about it, or they're not giving you the data because they're not able to. And that's accurate data about them. They don't know, or they are confused or something. At which point the monitor's going to say something like, okay, put the target to one side, and now can you as a remote viewer go and examine that question and see what you can perceive, which is the point at which you're then going to bust out stage 4. Like I quite often draw a T and an I and do the tangibles and intangibles of a stage 4 matrix just in the air. I just probe the columns with my finger. Oh, what's that? Do that as the remote viewer or as the person having a conversation, and to jump naturally between those modes without any friction.
Dave, I have a question for you.
I've just to add on to that answer, I've found that in targets where I've picked up data where I'm certain that the target isn't actually a person, sometimes I find it easier to build a framework in my mind of the target as a person. Like I'll draw a little stick figure and I'll talk to it like it is a person to get conversational data with it regardless. That's another way that we've applied it towards targets that aren't specifically life forms.
Yeah, that's a super, because when we like AOL and AOL Drive are a really good example of how this works. That if you convince yourself the target has some kind of properties, then that notion you have about it, you basically created a lens through which you will perceive the target data. So it will color and censor bits of your data so it fits in with your ideas about it, right? So in the same way, we can do that deliberately rather than in the process of fucking up. So we can say, you're going to be a person and you're going to speak to me in English and tell me about this. And anybody remembers Star Trek with the emergency medical hologram that used to pop up and go, please state the nature of your medical emergency, like that, and be like a kind of blank computer kind of person. That's what it feels like to me when I do this. When I take something which I know is like a conceptual thing. I have an ideogram for conceptual, which is just like a circle that goes around a few times. And sometimes it can be hard to decode. And you just go, just come and be a person. There's my conceptual ideogram. Come here. Okay, hello, person. Tell me about yourself. Explain. And very often you'll just get the correct answer in English when you don't limit yourself.
I think there are a couple of questions on the board. Deborah first and then Don.
I am talking a lot today. I'm sorry. I just had a couple comments. Like at first when you were discussing the method and you're sort of talking to the target and then it talks back. Fascinating. It sounds a lot like classic channeling. Like when I was growing up in British Columbia, I mean, I used to hear radio ads for this woman who would channel this alien. And I had no idea.
It's a little bit different from channeling, because in channeling, it's like a partial possession where something is going to come and take over the person.
Yeah, that's kind
I
of
don't know,
what I
you
heard.
could say it's maybe more similar with mediumship or something.
Yeah.
What it's most similar with is magical evocation, where you as the operator is entirely in the driving seat, and whatever you're talking to is somewhere near to you so you can have a conversation, but they're not in your space. You know, it's like sitting across the table from
Keeping it
somewhere.
at arm's length. So interesting that I was talking about magic right off the top today. I was having that question from yesterday about magicians and hypnosis, because when you were invoking, like as you were leading everyone into, the beginning of the RV session, it seemed very much like a hypnosis induction. So this seems to me, because also in my studies, I've discovered that when they do fMRIs and they monitor the brain waves of hypnosis subjects, they all go into theta when they're under hypnosis. So they're in a theta state. And so are we when we're doing RV, but also there's the alpha state, which is another state from which we do RV. So these are questions I'm having. Like, I think theta is better personally, but I think alpha is more awake, which could be better from a different point of view because you're more coherent in alpha. But I mean, which do you prefer? Would you prefer the alpha or the theta, or do you aim for any particular one, or have you given it much thought? I'm just wondering.
I use the neorhythm somewhere in the theta range, like anywhere from kind of 5 to 7 hertz. Not to say that you would definitely be in that state. I started using it for ERV cooldowns, which it really helps with. It takes it from like 30 minutes to 5. With practice, it's really effective.
It's so fascinating to me that this is the convergence today. It's like a bit of a synchronicity, because these questions have been coming up for me for a while, and it looks like this has been developing for sort of the same amount of time. And you're sort of answering my question. This is a really fascinating method. I didn't try it. I wanted to just look at it today and look at it from outside and keep it at arm's length a bit, because I'm a bit leery of hypnosis personally, and I have my reasons. So I just wanted to stay out of it for today and see, but it looks really cool. I have to say, it looks very cool.
Thanks for that, Deborah. We're going to move on faster just because hopefully if someone wants to try, we can try one of these live. Don, would you like to go next? And I hope you're doing well, Don, as well.
Yeah, thank you. I am improving. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yes.
Okay, so fascinating, David, fascinating. It's wonderful to see. I think of this as like advanced research or forward-looking work, as they used to call it at the labs. Couple of questions. Do you need to, this is going to sound crazy, but do you need to believe in something? You mentioned magic several times, and I don't know what that implies.
No.
But there could be some mental or subconscious alignment. That's why I'm asking.
I don't think you need to believe in something. You're working with your own mind, right? When you do a paper session, you get into stage 2 and you say, what does it smell like? And you answer that question. And Cowboy, you're just creating the question in your own mental space as you go.
Okay. And that mental space does not need to be a preconceived belief in something.
No. I mean, if you can close your eyes and visualize an image, where do you put that image? Use that space.
Okay.
If you can't do that, close your eyes, touch your nose with your finger, use the kinesthetic space, right? The nose where your body is. That space can encode information about things which are not your body, right? If you take an object like this beer, close your eyes and put it down on the table and lift your hand up, you can go and pick it up accurately because you know where it is. It's in your kinesthetic space, right? Put remote viewing data objects into that. Put life forms and structures into that space and just keep tabs of them. It's
Okay,
basically a user interface into your working memory.
this brings me to my next question: is to what degree does workspace management assist or improve this form of RV?
I suppose it depends on how much stuff you can keep in there. I don't tend to have a huge amount of things in there, like 2 or 3 or 1. You know, if I'm just talking to something, that will be all that's really in my awareness. It's useful for looking at, say, you've identified that you have a life form and a structure at a target, but you don't know the relationship between the two. So I might put the structure there. Okay, I've identified it's a big flat building that I may well in an Amazon warehouse because it's cheap and rickety and blue. And then I got this life form. So life form, you come here and go in my hand, show me, where do you go? Show me on the structure where you go. And it's like, oh, I go over here in the distance, far away. And so I say, okay, well, let's move both of those things and look at that distance between them. What's the significance of this space? I probe the space, you know, and move around naturally like that using physical conceptual language rather than verbalizing everything.
Okay, so I think I get the idea. This is a little bit like ERV in a way, where you're working with a three-dimensional arena, and you're investigating this, but you're kind of managing it in a workspace sort of.
Yeah. I mean, I think people have quite different experiences of ERV. My own experience is it's more like virtual reality, where I'm just at the target and I have incredible visuals, but I am there. My point of awareness is immersed in the target. Whereas with Cowboy, my point of awareness is whatever I damn well say it is, and I'm pulling bits of the target into that and manipulating them there.
Okay, and last question, and this is just to clarify. You mentioned scrying different surfaces, including toilet paper and some other things, and I'm just trying to clarify. Were you interpreting the patterns you saw in the rolled paper?
No.
Kind of like
people actually executed written ideograms on the toilet paper. The scrying was in a soup bowl.
Aha.
They mostly did the toilet paper sessions to annoy Daz. It wasn't really anything other than
at the time
shit posting.
At the time of those targets, there was a big debate on the server on whether or not electronic devices like tablets affected the accuracy of remote viewing.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kamikaze. You turned into a complete robot there. I got about 5% of what you were saying. But anyway, that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Next up with a question is James.
Yeah, so David and Josh, great presentation. Thank you both. You made me think about novelty. So I was thinking about forced choice, and they started off a lot of psychics. I think when SRI was testing them, and then with my own experience, I do forced choice, but you start off great at it, and then you get bad, and I think it's because subconscious gets bored. So you all seem to be feeding the subconscious. You talk about novelty. You seem to be like giving it these wonderful tasks and being able to kind of very flexibly move through methodology. So I know the spirit of this is kind of playful, but are you finding it for operational work? Do you think like it really has helped you to go into this space where you're just in a sandbox playing? And then are you taking these same kind of methodology and same kind of flow, loose methodology to maybe some different operational work that you all might look at?
I mean, we haven't used it for like important, real paid operational work, but we have used it for operational taskings. I think it's as good or better. and it's better in that it's much quicker and easier. It's just lower investment. You know, I mentioned earlier us doing job interviews for the new chat moderator on Discord, and I just got numbers 1 to 6, and in 20 minutes I conducted an interview with 6 participants, one of whom turned out to be an unnamed hypothetical contribution from RV. And my reaction to them was like, they absolutely are not willing to do this. There's no point continuing the interview. You know, that was number 6, if I remember. But it was incredibly efficient. And I think part of why it's fun is because you don't waste any time. You're not dragging your heels through a bunch of stages you don't need or going through these motions. You just go straight there and get it. So I think to the extent that the tedium of paper methodology is a hindrance rather than a benefit to you, ditching that is going to be a benefit rather than a hindrance.
Awesome. Thank you.
It doesn't make you more psychic, right? But it makes it quicker and more fun. So if you already learned to be psychic by doing paper, now it's quicker and more fun. So higher signal to noise, perhaps.
Naeem's got a question.
Oh, is that
Hello?
in the chat? Hello?
Naeem, do you want to ask your question? You're muted. That's it.
There we go. What would be the a couple questions, but what would be the benefit of a cowboy session as opposed to something like working on a whiteboard where you could still stand there and talk and close your eyes and do hand motions and things like that, and maybe still be able to record something that you won't be able to remember? Like what would be the benefit of a cowboy in that area?
I mean, we do stop and sketch things down so that we don't forget if it's like an important visual. They're very similar, but it depends what you're doing with the whiteboard. Certainly the ability to move things rather than just like having to wipe off the whole thing, but to be able to like grab things with your hands, move them about, go, oh, hey, where does this go? Like you can do all that stuff with a whiteboard. Cowboy's more immersive, it's quicker, it's more gentle, right? There's no physical effort that goes, you don't even have to lift the pen up. You can imagine moving your hands around, right? You don't need to actually do that. I do. It's helpful for me, but I've tried it without. You can just sit there and do it. So this isn't designed to be like a new and better way of doing remote viewing. This is more like testing the limits, testing the dogma, seeing what rules we've learned are true and which ones we can throw away, and having fun and exploring and experimenting. So this isn't designed to be like solving problems that exist with paper or solving problems that exist with whiteboards.
I dig it.
Yeah,
I dig it. Also, what would be like, how would you stop like bad imagination is in the part that would make up something that's not there? Like it does exist. I mean, I would like to think I could just cowboy it forever and just keep going deeper. But, if I'm being honest with myself, I think in a very short time, I'd probably be introducing a lot of off-target information because even in my experience with remote viewing in paper and stuff like that, like the signal line kind of comes in like a kind of like an interval. It's not necessarily like always there, so to speak. So
I'm gonna have to like guess, but I'm gonna have a good guess, right? I think because you're not having to write or present, you're just speaking and stream of consciousness. Like it's more about your experience as the viewer. And like if you get a moment, oh yeah, by the way, listeners, this is what this was. So it's almost like staying engaged with the signal line as a primary thing. Whereas if you're doing a paper structure or a whiteboard structure, that's the primary thing. And then there's little spaces in the structure where you dip down into the psychic data and then you come back and you fill in the thing and you do the page number and you do this and you do that. You think about presentation. Here, you're like you're riding the signal line like a mountain bike downhill. And occasionally you're just like, yep, that happened, this happened, off we get, you're staying much deeper into it. Not ERV deep, but like if you do an ERV session, you're there, right? It's like VR. It doesn't turn on and off. It's a continuous signal. And it may improve in fidelity as you go, but it's an unbroken thing where you're not like, oh, now I've got to go and fill in this matrix and draw these lines and write these headings and stuff and do all this other stuff. Where was I again? And now I have to reacquire that. You don't have that problem of breaking. So AOL getting into visuals and stuff is way less of an issue with ERV. So I am super just guessing here, but I think it's because you stay much more significantly hanging onto the signal line, so to speak, with this methodology.
Cool, thanks.
The personal value I found from this particular methodology is more so in learning the language of your subconscious, which it's true, all methods do this to various degrees. It's just, I've found that viewers who we've Cowboy RV'd with, they tend to, at least when I'm reading their data, I see them more able to identify those strings of thought, that bad imagination, if you will.
Cool. Because to me, it's like when I'm working on the whiteboard, to me, that's like a cowboy session. I mean, to someone who doesn't know remote viewing, I'm just drawing on the whiteboard. They don't know the processes I'm doing because I'm not doing them on paper. So I understand the whole direction, but I still do believe that a certain amount of structure and discipline is required because information is being processed. But yeah, I'm not going to be get on your ass about it. I like the, I like the direction. I like
I mean, structure's useful.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
I wouldn't tell people to start with Cowboy when they didn't know how to remote view.
The process that my sessions tend to take, because they're very obviously the nature of the medium is very AOL heavy, is it's like when you're in math and you're reducing your fractions. I take the data I have and then I reduce it to the lowest common denominator. Like, do I believe that I'm actually seeing a target that's Yoda jumping around doing some crazy things? No, I'll reduce it down to there's a life form engaged in some sort of very kinetic activity going very back and forth. Like I'll reduce it down for translation to after the fact.
Thanks for those questions, Naeem. We're running short on time, and we might, if you guys want to hang around, we could try a demo of this. But Theo's got his hand up. If we take that as the last question for now.
Yeah, I want to add that I enjoyed the process, the kind of kinesthetic context strengthening, and like the ideogram is really in my left hand and to visual that. But on the same time, I felt it was really everything extreme chaotic, what came in, what I perceived on data. And for me, for myself, with this one only experience now, it was too chaotic to bring this all in a kind of structure, especially later in operational work. So I don't know how many records so generally do you get with it when you work operationally, and how you structure them. This would be my question.
Well, we've not done formal work for other people. Like if I got paid operational target, I would do a TRV session and then probably some unstructured stuff if I got retasked. I wouldn't do Cowboy as my go-to operational tool. I think it could work, and I think it could work very well, but at this point it's super experimental and new. I wouldn't want to take somebody's money and do Cowboy. As to having too much data and overwhelm, that happens to some people when they learn paper methods. I was talking to somebody recently who they would be about to draw the ideogram, and then they've got like a huge dump of target data, just like a fire hose going. What they were working on was calming that down and getting it under control. So I think getting the fire hose under control is a process you can do if you're learning a paper methodology and that's happening, or if you're doing Cowboy and that's happening. But maybe if you're doing Cowboy, there's no rules about what you were allowed to perceive. So perhaps you can allow yourself to perceive higher level or more relevant types of data and train yourself to filter out those. You could try adding intent what is the most important thing? What am I most interested in? What's most relevant to the feedback? You know, if you set your intent, this is what I want, rather than just give me the target. And that's like this huge download of stuff. But, you know, there's nothing to say that you can't ask questions and filter it down. Cowboy isn't about not being in control. It's about method or methodology not being in control of you.
I would say that anybody attempting to use this in an operational fashion, I've only done it once or twice, not for clients, but for friends working projects. Context is key. Obviously, the goal is to collect data, but establishing the context of that data becomes paramount when working in a medium like this. So in a lot of ways, my sessions are less drawing a picture of the target so much as I will explain the story behind the target or the why of the target. That's usually the sort of answers I'm trying to provide someone.
Well, stuff, guys. Thanks for that, and thanks for the questions so far. If you guys want to hang around, does David? Do you still want to run someone?
I'm happy to hang around.
Is anyone willing to have a go at doing this live?
So all I'll do is monitor and like help anybody along who wants to do it. Daz has come up with a couple of targets, but you don't have to do them both at the same time.
Yeah, just one.
I'm happy to try it.
Excellent. Should we give it a go then? How do you want to progress, Dave? Do I have to give you the target number or anything? You're just going to just go for it.
Yeah. Can you remember? Close your eyes.
Do you guys want me to step? Do you want to tell them what it is, Daz? Do you want me to step away from that? Or
let's all be blind.
Yeah, let's everyone be blind for now, and I'll just chuck the PDF in the thing afterwards for everyone to have a look at.
Okay.
Well, I tell you what, if people want to chip in and ask questions,
you don't want everyone though, do you? You only want like 3 or 4 people, don't you?
Well, in a sense,
we can write the questions in the comments, and then David, you can.
Good idea.
Yeah, good idea. So if anybody thinks of something they would like to ask about the target, throw it in the text chat, and then I'll ask Dave if I monitor.
All right, just be sure. I've got 2 targets though, but I'm picking the first target. All right.
All right. Can you put the TRN in the text chat for us?
Yes.
Do you want me to work it with my finger, basically? Work my coordinate with the finger, kick it off like that?
Yeah. Just draw an ideogram in the air. Like, you don't have to do that. I've found as somebody who's like CRV-ish trained that's a helpful jumping off point to get from there to. So, yeah, if you want to do something else, but that's what works for me. So we'll quickly get weird after that.
Yeah, whatever
right,
happens,
cool.
just remember, guys.
If you have a blindfold or anything, throw that on. Don't self-censor anything. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't self-censor anything. Just say the data as it comes in.
Yeah.
Don't care
whatever
if it's
happens,
right or
guys. Just remember FPS. Remember that. Okay. So the.
What's FPS?
Okay. So Daz will tell you about it. Okay. So read me the coordinates then, and we'll do it.
Sure. Okay. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Coordinates are 2403-0101.
2403-. What was the last 4?
0101.
Okay, curving over, curving down, semi-hard person, brown, gray. I feel like I've seen gray hair. Older. Getting like an AOL of like lunch. I'm gonna have to put that previous guy, Bill, aside. So I feel a sense of like age or antiquity. The word ancient comes to mind.
Seeing like a gray, gritty stone. Outdoorsy feel. I feel like I get a sense of tall. To me, it feels more male.
Okay. Does your ideogram have a piece in it that is like visually clearly a life form? Like, does it have a loop or something, however you represent a
Yeah,
life form?
yeah, I have a loop.
Cool. Can you grab onto that with your dominant hand and kind of throw it into your non-dominant hand as if it's like a juggling ball, and then catch it in your non-dominant hand, look down with your eyes closed. You don't have to see a purely clear visual of it. Just be aware something's there. Don't force it to take form if it doesn't want one. And say hello. And see if it says hello back. Does it have an emotional vibe when you greet it?
Yeah, it feels like it. It feels to me, I get like a kind of a polite vibe, unless that's just coming from you.
No, I'm terribly rude. So if you say to it, do you mind if we ask you some questions? And then see what it says.
We ask you some questions. Yeah, I feel like I got like a smiley person. I feel like I got like a person like with their hands clasped, kind of. Seems friendly. Smiley.
So what would you say their attitude towards, are they happy to talk? Doesn't matter if they're not. They still will.
Yeah. No,
I
mean, this feels like good vibes to me. Feels like good vibes.
Cool. Well, let's start with like, what's their shtick? What's their big thing, the function, the job, the role, the story, whatever it is? What's their big thing?
Okay, what's your big function here? Okay, I don't know what that's about. I think I get like stone masonry. I get this person like just a big smile, kind of like happy to be here. I get dark features, dark color hair, maybe. I get like I don't know if it's an AOL, like maybe a native, some kind of Native American or something.
See if you can get them to just answer you verbally, not necessarily like direct clairaudience where you're hearing the sound, but where you're interpreting a bunch of words or things you can translate easily. So, could you just tell me in English, what's your shtick? What's your big thing?
What's your shtick? What's your shtick? I get workable solutions. I get the word algebraic. I don't know if there's math oriented with this or something. I don't know. That's just the word I get. What's your deal? I don't really get much there. I get like a sense of a worker bee type of thing. Seeing hand movements. Seeing like a hand in a bowl or something, like a bowl and hands. The picture I'm seeing in my mind.
You said workable solutions. Are they solving some kind of problem? You could ask them to show you. Like,
show me what
can
you're
you
talking about.
show me you solving the problem? Or
Okay, I get it like a sense of pride. I get a sense that this person's like, I feel like I'm hearing like a clanking sound or something, like And I feel like it's like somebody very prideful, almost like an Elon Musk or something, very prideful of a creation type of vibe. Like working, and again, this could be AOL and like astrophysics, physics, mathy type stuff. Like the word reliable comes in.
Yep.
You said they were moving their hands around like in a bowl. Why? Can you ask them why you're moving your hands, or get them to show you that in more detail?
Yeah, could you show me what you're doing with your hands? I like a busy time is what I get. What I feel like I'm hearing in my head. Like it's a busy time right now. It's really weird. Like the picture in my head, it's very simplistic. It's almost like a couple of hands in like a wooden bowl or something, like drifting around.
Okay, well, you kind of got a physical or kinesthetic or visual handle on this life form. Bear in mind, you might not have a specific point in time that you're looking at. This could be one of those, just give me a general profile. I don't know what the hell Daz has done here, so I'm blind, but we got a life form. So see if you can just be aware of where you are, your eyes, even though they're shut, and where it is. And then just move your awareness into it, overlap yourself with it so you're looking out of its eyes. Look down, see its hands as yours kind of occupy the same perceptual space, and be like, okay, now show me.
All right. I feel like I'm getting kind of a leadership role here. Getting a sense of a cadence to things. A sense of direction. Go here, do this, do that. Sense of formality, intrusion, secular nature. It just feels like a busy atmosphere. Like there's like people around. I don't know if chaotic is the right word, but I feel like there might be people around this guy. Getting a sense of direction, directive. Something about, I don't know if this guy's like wearing something formal, or this person, I get something formal about the position or what they're wearing. Just get a feeling like problem solving.
Okay, let's put this to one side for a moment. If you draw yourself a timeline in your workspace where left is the past, right is the future, and draw a little dot in the middle is the present. So you're at the present now. Just feel on that timeline or allow the target to pop onto it. Where are they? Are they a past, present, or future thing? And once you get that, see how far, see if you can place in time.
Feels past. It definitely feels past to me. How far past? I'm having a hard time telling, because like it feels to me like it's almost like I'm getting this hard AOL of like an Elon Musk type, like somebody's in charge, kind of giving direction. I see kind of like some people excitable.
Do you want to peel the onion on Elon Musk? Why is this target like Elon Musk?
Sure, like stage 5 of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, objects, person, attributes, important, subject. I get a sense of knowledge, thinking, um, formulaic topics of topics. I just get a sense of interest, intrigue. I don't know. That's it. That's all I got.
Okay.
Um,
Let's move to the physical body. So if you know, like the men's bathroom sign that's just like a stick person, like that. Just imagine one of those in front of you. That's like a voodoo puppet doll that represents this life form, right? So we can probe different bits of that, call up visuals in it if you want. So let's just smash the top of their head open and see what's in there. What is the visual? What's your AI if you look into their mind from that bodily perspective? What does it feel like? What's the aesthetic reaction to it?
I feel jovial. I mean, as soon as you mentioned like the, the gestalt, I got the sense of a little heavy. But I feel like I'm seeing a lot of smiles. And every time I approach this consciousness, I get smiles, and that kind of feeling.
Can you dig into the smiles more? Why are they smiling? Well, you could bring them back up and ask them, what are you so smiley? Why are you so happy?
I feel a sense of like accomplishment, like they've done something. Good job. That's what it feels like to me. Now I almost feel like it's almost like a celebratory environment. And the word change comes in.
Let's look at the job and the change and stuff. Draw yourself a new ideogram for that if you want. Just try and establish a new context for it. You can just pop that life form to one side if you want. Maybe they can chip in with some of their own opinion if they want to.
I get a feeling of high energy, high octane, excitement, and then I get like a sense of academic. I get like an academic feel, sciencey feel, math, a sense of influence. Like a feeling of reactionary, responsible. I get like a missionary. Yeah.
So you mentioned a change. If you want to make yourself a timeline again and see what shape that change is it like one big event or is it a long-term thing? Does the impact of that change persist?
I'm getting like a progressive change. It's almost like I'm looking at, you visualize a timeline and kind of the graph, like a gradual increase. That's kind of the impression I'm getting in my mind.
So are they responsible for this whole thing, or do they just like start it and then it continues on its own, or how do they relate to the change? Oh, we can do a relationship diagram here, actually. That could be fun if you want to do that.
Sure.
Okay, so you've got that graph chart shape that you got that relates to the change. If you pop that on one side, pop the life form on the other side, and then draw an arrow from the life form to the change and prompt yourself, life form, how do you feel about this change? And then just probe the arrow, right? What data is in there?
I'm getting like I get a sense of like I can't tell what his impression is of it, but I still get a sense of pertinence to the peak. Excuse me. Like the words like direct response or direct responsive. Messaging. A high point. Significant. I'm trying to figure out what his relationship is to the peak. Like significant part to play.
You could ask him directly to describe it. See if he'll just tell you in English. It's easier than
Yeah, I
decoding
mean, how does this rise relate to you? I feel like you're saying it's pertinent, transformative. I get a sense of like he's responsible, or like I keep getting a sense of some significance to him. Significant change, like an uptick. Pertinent. I think revolutionary comes to mind. It's like a discovery. Like it seems kind of excitable about something. Influence, change.
Okay, if you pop the primary life form to one side, blank the whole rest of your workspace and just kind of take a little reset, and then retask yourself on who or what is affected by that change. Do another ideogram if you want, just bring that up into the space.
So, and again, I don't know, this could be just garbage, but right away, like tribe, nation, people, I feel like I'm seeing now, like maybe some native people, tan skin people. And now I'm seeing all this like tribal action going on. I get a feeling of like a recluse. The word deterrent comes in. Gosh, I don't even know if I want to say this.
If there's stuff that you don't want to say, write it down or remember it, and then you can decide when you got feedback whether you want to say it or not. Because sometimes, you know, like...
yeah, I gotcha. I got the sense of like a confrontational, something confrontational, maybe. A lot of high energy. Like I feel like this guy's around a lot of people. This chaotic energy. Influence.
Cool. Time's getting on a bit, so let's move this towards the end. If you want to quickly prompt yourself, like, what's the one big important thing we haven't covered yet? If I missed anything, any other business?
Yeah. Okay, so I just kind of like just asked like what I usually do in CRVs.
Yeah.
Session, what is most noteworthy about the target type of thing, and I just get a sense of like change. change, evolution, something like that.
Cool. So now let's do the thing that could just derail the hell out of everything, which is it's good to do it at the end, which is phonetics. So you're going to need direct phonetic words, names, or numbers. Feel free to make garbled phonetic noises if you while you try and resolve them if you want. I tend to only manage like one or two syllables out of this. It's kind of sucky, but
yeah,
give it a try if you want.
Yeah, like a magistrate, majesty. I feel like there's some kind of M word that I'm trying to spit out. Molly. I don't know. I feel like there's like an MAL. I'm really not getting much, like a 6.5. I'm not really getting much. Red, I don't know if it's a name or what, but that just came out. More Fred or no Fred.
Maybe there's a visual that goes with this. Just shut your eyes and get one. You're allowed to close your eyes in Cowboy, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I could, for out there, I felt like I just seemed kind of like a good looking young guy, type of thing.
Cool. Right. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap it up? Daz, are you there? And we can find out what ridiculous target you've set.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Are you finished then? Are you?
Did anybody else have a try while we were doing that? It looked like a couple other people might be playing along at home. Does anybody have any data they want to present really quickly? I don't know. Maybe that's a no.
No. Let me please say something. It was like a powerful guy with a very, very chameleonic type of person, and like a Zeus type of guy. Not necessarily a guy, but this type of forceful guy, let's say. That's it.
Go on then, Daz.
Okay, but before I show you the target, I do want to say, a big up to David for trying this live in front of everyone.
Yeah, that was super fucking brave.
Yeah, very brave of you.
I'm really glad somebody volunteered to do it, because otherwise I would have had to do it, and I'd have had like the worst performance anxiety ever after giving that presentation.
You can't hit it. You can't hit a home run without a few strikes. I mean, you can't do it.
And before we go there with the target, I do want to say I did pick a slightly hard, controversial target, both of them. But I thought you got some really interesting data that I feel is quite relevant to this target. So well done on it. Okay, I'm going to share my screen there, and then I'll put the PDF in the file afterwards. But it's nice if I share the screen for anyone that's going to watch the video, kind of thing.
Oh, oh shit.
So the target wasn't Courtney himself. The target was his Harvey. And I think you actually got some quite very good information, because you're coming about all this. You've got a life form for a start, and you're talking about all this stuff about change, which is the kind of thing that Courtney wants to do, or he's talking about with Harvey, about the disclosure, the changing of us realizing that aliens are real and we're all interacting, kind of thing.
Wow, great pick for a target. That was a great pick.
I'll stop the share now, and I'll put the target in, in the window, because it does link to the actual video as well. But the actual target was the life form or consciousness, known as Harvey, because even if we don't know if he's real or not, consciousness for all different things exists. So and I think you picked up on some very relevant data. So well done.
Yeah, was interesting. It was interesting as a remote viewer to kind of take the chains off and just play around, Dave. And thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity to
no
do
worries.
it.
Thank you for being game. It was very
Some other words,
was,
I did write some notes, but you talked about this rise in this change, significant change, an uptick, and it was going to be transformative, a revolutionary, and it was all about discovery. A very excitable person who wanted to influence, had knowledge. You even mentioned something like in the early part of the session. I didn't get the word because I didn't get it all down in time, but maybe you mentioned hive mind kind of thing there as well. And I like the Elon Musk kind of things because, Elon Musk is everything's about space and space travel and going to Mars and all this kind of stuff. So I can understand where you might be getting like a character like Elon Musk if this is a an alien or interdimensional kind of consciousness type thing.
Yeah, it was a very much like, you know how ELLs work. It was very much like this guy's in charge of technical shit type of thing. But very personable. Like it's almost like when when you're dealing with the dead, something like, oh, we're just happy you're here. Hey, how's it going? What's going on? Type of thing. Very interesting.
So, Dave, what did you write down that you weren't sure whether you were going to say? Is it okay to trash talk Harvey?
Well, it's weird because the word I wrote down, to be honest with you, was racial. I didn't know if it was almost like it had something to do with like equality or something, so that's why I was like bouncing around in time, like, is this like MLK or something? Which I know a little bit about, what he's doing there with Harvey. You could go down that rabbit hole as far as humanity, if that's what that, but who knows? But that's kind of the vibe that I got. It was almost like an MLK vibe, like it's like a racial thing.
Dave, on the end part, I thought was really interesting in that, when you're doing the phonetic stuff, because because we're talking about, this, for the people who don't know much about this, this Harvey, which is like an alien kind of consciousness, or being, we don't know, that Courtney and Farsight say they interact with, but you go for the phonetics, and for almost for a second I was going to fall off my chair there, because you started off with the word magistrate, and then you went to majestic. No, you went to majesty, and I was thinking if he's going to say like majestic 12 or something like that, I will fall off. Was it? But even the word majesty is close to what they allegedly call the the alien EBE kind of program. So I thought that was an interesting word that you came up with. Because it's called majestic 12 or majesty. So I did think that was quite interesting that came in right at the end there.
Yeah, I mean, to me, working with phonetics, I mean how it is, because you do get into phonetics, you will get some of that shit. You get some really high, and really high level data at stage 6. And then sometimes like you're kind of lucky with that, but it was almost like I was trying to maul or like I kept getting this three little grouping. But what was interesting to me is like this whole persona of this consciousness, intelligent, high level, sciencey minded, very polite. I don't know if I said it out loud, but I'd say anything about astrophysics. I was getting all this sciencey shit.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Really interesting. Maybe Courtney is talking to somebody.
Timmy, what data did you get? Somebody asked, I think Anita asked, could you tell us more about your data? About Zeus?
It's not so very important. The important thing that I have had is that when you point out to for the timeline, I went to the future, I went to the future, and that was very important. And I just sensed a very powerful energetics coming from up, from this guy who was up. Like this, why I thought of Zeus and on this. That's it. Not much more.
But you also got a male though, right, Demi? I mean, you felt like a male presence.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
But
that was weird because it was almost so friendly. I was like, maybe this is a female.
I can.
One thing that we didn't get around to was looking at the nature of the intrusion. So maybe there's something sinister there to do with friendliness and intrusion.
That's very important because I feel I felt like I had to protect from this thing, person, whatever.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Dave, if you stop talking to folding chairs, get yourself checked.
Well, it's funny and we talked about this a little bit, but when Courtney talks to this guy, it's not that he's not. I don't doubt that he's. I mean, we're all psychic. We experience this in stage 4, stage 6. It's not that he's not making contact with something. It's just we don't know what it is, and are we going to take for granted it's what he says it is? It's one of those type of things. I don't know, but man, that was an interesting target, Daz. Good one, man.
No, thank you, and thank you for the other, David as well for doing this. And I think it's great because it just goes to show that there is no tried and true method. Everything's exploratory. There must be so much that we could do to take this RV stuff in new directions. There's so much to explore. So thanks for being brave to doing that live on video. Like, well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
that was fun.
It's just like you guys said too. I mean, like,
though, Daz.
but like you said, like once you, and it's just like regular remote viewing. Once you kind of stop caring about the nature of what it is, it just leaves it open for the actual data just to move right in.
I definitely think
I
definitely think you guys, playing around with this in Discord have kind of come across something that might, it's early days, but it might be a developmental tool that might be usable for all different kinds of circumstances. So well done.
Oh, I was going to add one more thing about driving, which is sort of a bit of a tangent, but you just reminded me of it there, Daz, that when you're doing remote viewing with Cowboy and you're kind of breaking all the limits that you've trained yourself to have, it makes it much easier to apply tools instantaneously. So when I'm driving, where I live is rural, there's lots of blind corners and you don't know if there's any vehicles coming the other way. I just move my awareness around the corner and look. So I get little experiments where I get to see, did I get it right? And I get feedback almost immediately. And I do that the whole time without closing my eyes, I might add, just have a little feel a little way into the future. What's going to be there when I'm there? I think the furthest I've gone is sort of about 1.5 miles, but that was after 3 days fasting. So, but yeah, it's you can take the Cowboy out of the session after a while, and you can just use these things very, very quickly. So I think even if this turns out
right to the guts too, right to the meat,
useful.
Yeah. It was right to the guts.
It's a good discipline.
I like Dave too. When you told me to put him in my other hand, like internally, I'm getting like, okay, like I get a crown on this guy's head, but internally I'm like, AOL, AOL. I know this is just something that's coming in, but it did feel to me like he was in some kind of a leadership role, which is interesting. But yeah, really fun. Really fun. It's always fun to do something new in the psychic world.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. For anybody else who wants to play around with this within their group, I would suggest a target that actually exists as a first time practice one. Fictional ones are good because they're safe. I should add like a little warning. Obviously, this is inspired by the occult and magic and stuff. There are things out there that you can talk to that can land you in psychiatric ward, right? So don't just be a little cautious. Doing fictional characters is a brilliant way to start off with this because they're safe and there's tons of feedback. And it's a really interesting experience as a viewer to get to know what a fictional thing feels like, because in the context of Cowboy, you can still have a conversation with it, even though it doesn't exist. So what
do you think that's coming with, Dave? When you did Doctor Strange, like what is that consciousness presence? You think that's coming out of the viewer's subconscious interpretation, or where do you think it's coming from?
I guess maybe you could say the collective unconscious. there's an idea. If I say Doctor Strange, you know exactly who I mean, even though he doesn't exist, right? And I can say who and he, and it makes sense, right? So there's a construction, like there's this idea, right, that thoughts are things, ideas are real, and that individual is just a thought, just happens to be not one who evolved by being born in a human body, but is written in a script somewhere, and then millions of people watch the movies and they all echoed that thought out there. In my session, when I got the big circle, he makes the big magic circly sparkly things in front of him. I was looking at this, and it was like he was holding up a big shiny metal plate, like a serving platter or something, in my interpretation of it. And I'm like, what the hell is this? It's like a mirror. He's holding up a mirror to people. This is like a way for people to, and of course I'm talking about the movies, the function of art in that way, which was kind of mind-blowing, really. I don't know, like my favorite saying is all models are wrong, some are useful, right? I think we do ourselves a disservice if we wed ourselves to any particular interpretation of phenomena. And another quote, I don't know who said this one, is belief is the enemy of understanding. So fuck it, just go talk to some Marvel characters with your mind and see what happens. It's interesting.
And I just say, belief is the basis of understanding. But I just wanted to say, when it comes to these things responding to us from we know not where, I used to think, oh, it's my imagination, or like you said, the collective consciousness, or it could be a lot of things. But lately, with my research, I am beginning to wonder, and again, it comes to discernment. Like, for instance, there's these stories of how a group of psychic people will create some kind of being just from nothing with their power of their consciousness. Altogether, they create this personality that communicates with them. And they say it doesn't exist. And my intuition on that is, well, what if you're a spirit and you're bored, or you're going around looking to cause some trouble, and you find this group of people who will believe just about anything you say. They'll believe that you're this person they're trying to, like, what I'm trying to say, aside from Occam's razor, is how do you know you're not being spoken to by something that's real to mess with you, this trickster idea?
You don't. And it's a big
that's
deal,
what I'm saying. You just
like,
don't. Yeah, that's why you say
I mean,
you have to.
You can, with practice and training, you can tell. One thing you can,
I don't know about that. That's the thing.
I do know about that because I have that practice and training, and I can tell it is possible.
So do I,
right?
and it's been a lot of years, and sometimes it's really hard to tell, and to just assume that something's not real.
No, you can tell it's real, but like anything's real if you're talking to it, because it's going to have an effect on you, and you're real as far as you can tell.
Well, I don't
right? So if it's really affecting you, then how is it not real? Even if you're constructing it,
because you could be
real.
You could be reacting to something that's not real, but but
your reaction is real.
It's
a real
but
phenomenon.
It might be a reaction to something that's delusional. I believe that there is the existence of being delusional, but I personally find this to be a sticky issue in all the years that I've sort of danced around it and not really faced it. Like a lot of the people I've associated with are not really psychic people. They just are normal people, and don't like to talk about this kind of thing. They don't want to explore this. So I've never really had a chance to really go deep into it. But I mean, we just really don't know. And so how do we prove it? And that's one of the things that grabbed me about remote viewing, because this was my question about the static target. Like if I'm viewing a book, like I'm reading I, Claudius, and suddenly I'm remote viewing, a scene in the novel. Is that an indication that
you're
is
not
not a
remote viewing if
fiction?
you're not doing it deliberately and there isn't a target that you're doing on purpose and recording your perceptions and blah blah blah.
I
You
don't
might
know
be having
about
an
that, because what
experience
you're
and it might
doing,
be
your
no, I
cowboy
mean
method
that's not what
is pretty.
remote view. We're blind, we're doing a specific target on purpose, and we're recording our
I
perceptions.
don't know if you're blind. That's the thing. That's the other
We
thing
were
I have
blind.
about remote
Daz
viewing.
didn't
about
tell anybody what the target
front-loading,
was.
because I'm saying, like, sometimes you don't realize that you're front loaded, and
No,
you
front
only
loading
realize
when you are told something about the target. It's not when you have sight, perception, or imagination before you do the target, or synchronicity. That's not front loading. Front loading is a deliberate thing where the tasker will
Well,
say, here is
my
your target. It
question
is a
is-
life form.
My
That's
question,
front loading.
besides the, you want to, obfuscate and argue about procedure, but what I'm talking about, is it real? Was I viewing a real scene from the novel, or was it my imagination? When I'm reading about Elijah and he talks about the horses of fire and the chariots of fire on the hills all around that no one can see but him, and yet I can see them. So, like, what is going on? Like, how do we know what's real and what isn't? And that is not a simple question. It's not something that we could make assumptions and sort of blithely kind of say, well, that's not real, but we can still view it, because that doesn't make any sense to me. It seems to me if I can view something, it's more likely to be real. Again, I was more convinced about extraterrestrials because viewers were going to verifiable targets that were verified, and there were extraterrestrials there. And that, to me, is a kind of proof. Like, I'm looking at remote viewing as a way of proving. It's one of the best ways. And I don't know if anyone has really realized that, but it's almost a better way of proving whether something's true or not than.
No, not really. If you have a
than
tasker who
either.
has strong beliefs, then the viewers are just as likely to report the tasker's desire to get a certain response as they are ground truth. Like, that's one of the hardest problems in remote viewing, is separating out the so-called imaginary from the measurable ground truth.
Again, it comes down to that rapport, possibly, and the hypnotic rapport between the tasker.
Well, you could
and the
also
viewer.
look at the desire of the viewers to please their tasker, especially if their tasker is
I don't know
also their
about that.
teacher.
I'm not going to assume that for one
Yeah.
second, because that's an old kind of psychological assumption. It's an old paradigm. Not everybody's a pleaser,
No,
and
no,
I've been
but
told
some
that
people
myself.
are. It can happen. You don't want to miss your target. Do you want to miss
I
your
don't
target?
know. Maybe it can happen. I mean, but we want to aim in church, people want to please the leadership and look like they're spiritual and everything. So, it's not like we haven't all seen that, but I mean, we're talking about real serious people that want to really know the truth, who are sort of a little bit more grown up and understand that they're not there to please somebody. They're there to find out, like, that's my motivation anyway. I'm looking for the truth. And I find personally, this is really the sticky question with RV, because on the one hand, it's very convincing. And like I say, it seems like it's almost a proof. And yet on the other hand, it's very airy-fairy. And to come up with a good set of theorems and stipulations, I just don't know if it's ever going to happen. It's never happened in the church. They still haven't got it down, what's real and what isn't, right? And it's like the question of the eons, the question
Deborah,
of the.
I just want to interject here a little bit. RV is good, but we've all known, and it's been said for the years that RV started, that you should never use remote viewing as a source of information on its own, because it's very true that we can, I can, and I know I have without doubt, as a remote viewer, picked up and reported data that isn't real, non-physical. That's not to say it doesn't exist, because it might exist, but it might exist in the mind of someone that's tasked the target. It's not actually physically real. And
Right,
with
we
remote
have
viewers,
that
can do it.
instance of Dick Allgaier, creating a scene and then people viewing it.
Yes.
That is my question.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really good example. That
I just want you to be, because you were saying you want to get to the truth.
But in a way, it existed because he spent weeks creating it.
He did,
It wasn't
but I did a similar
experiment
experiment myself where I created something that only existed in my head. And that's the only place it existed, other than I did write it down on my computer on a notepad on my computer. And then I set that as a target for 10 remote viewers, and they all come back with the exact same thing as I envisioned in my head. It was total imagination, but they still remote viewed it. And their reporting of it, they said it was just like any other remote viewing session. They felt it was real.
So was it a real? I mean, the only way you could envision that thing was if it had been a real thing. Like, how could you ever envision something that wasn't real?
Thoughts
like,
are things.
All of your visions come
real.
from
There you go.
reality.
It was a total imagination that I made up in my head of a fake UFO that landed just outside my house. It didn't exist. It's not real. It's not physical. It never happened. But they reported it and sketched it as though it was real. All 10 of them.
And like when you teleported to
Stonehenge.
I mean, I saw that, and it didn't happen.
So I just want you to be wary that
that's the question I'm having. How can we tell
RV
the
is good, but it's not, it's not infallible. We can as remote viewers remote view social constructs, myths, stories, imagination just as much as we can remote view physical things, physical people, physical.
And
I want to add one little thing here. Daz, in your presentation, you talked about ideograms responding to the demands you place upon them, and we were doing cowboy sessions like every night for a while on the Discord. So we did a real variety of targets, and a lot of them were not real or not entirely real. And I ended up with new ideograms, and I now have one for this is completely fictional and made up, which looks like a staircase with some land at the bottom, and another one which is a story person, which is like it's a story about a person, but it's and that can apply to public figures where there's a real human behind it, or fictional characters or mythical characters, where that when people are talking about this person, they're not talking about the human, they're talking about the idea of the human. Or alternatively, the other one that looks like stairs is just like, this is just in a book.
David, that ideogram sounds very helpful. Can you loan that one out to me?
Yeah. Remote view it out of my head. One of them is called fictional. Drill yourself. This is fictional. See what your hand makes.
That's a good. I'm serious. That's a good. That's an interesting tool.
But it just happened, and then I had to happen a couple of times before I worked out what the ideogram meant. But I'd done so many, like I did Mickey Mouse and all this stuff.
Well, that's why I value your guy. Like when you guys went after Admiral Byrd, I thought that was interesting because I kind of like your guys' take on that whole.
It was just like the hillbillies drinking beer
yeah. Oh, anyway, I got one question. I just want to get this out before I forget it because it's important for what I got going on. I don't mean to be selfish, but since I got you and Daz here, but actually both of you guys, so I'm doing these precognitive forecast targets now, which is kind of a new thing for me. What I've noticed, though, for me personally, when I say it's new, is in I'm doing precognitive work that has nothing to do with anything that's going to affect my life, like a bet or anything like that. What I'm saying is, from my perspective, I go out. I did a few months now. I went all the way up to. I've done them in different orders. I went to December. I went to May, top news, global news. I went to April, and then I'll go back and revisit them, and then I'll compare data. And then, sure enough, I've got the same kind of data. Because I kind of forget, how it works. You kind of go back to them, you revisit, you kind of forget what it is, but you see the correlating data. So it's like, okay, whatever's happening, I'm going back to the same spot. My question is this: for one, from my perspective, going out to December, going out to May, going into April, I don't see any difference. It doesn't feel any different to me. It feels like I'm getting signal information. Like as far as the feeling of how the session breaks down, feels like any other target to me. The information doesn't feel any harder or less hard, to get, is what I'm saying, the farther I go out. What I have noticed as far as ideograms, I had a target, and we'll see what happens, but when I was doing this, when you talk about how the ideograms evolve, I was getting numbers as ideograms on my precognitive forecast target. So I'm really interested to see if this happens to maybe come out on this day or date of this number of, which would be interesting, but again, that's a personal thing. Well, my question is really primarily is, have you guys noticed any difference in the data or the feeling of signal or your results of forecast targeting as it pertains to how far out you go, as long as the information doesn't pertain to you personally, meaning like lotto numbers for you or outcome of a game. If you're just doing precognitive forecast top news, does the data all feel about the same, no matter how far out you go?
I haven't done stuff that's far out. I try and stick as close to the present as
I mean,
possible.
a year.
So,
I've gone out 6 months as far as I've gone out.
I never go more than a month, usually only a day or two.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think if it feels different.
I can feel how
I don't
far
think it
away
does.
in time a target is, but not
Because I
things
like busting it out
the
like that
data
because
doesn't feel different.
It keeps it random, Dave. You know what I mean? Like if I do December today and May tomorrow, June, you know what I mean? It keeps me really off rhythm as far as trying to
it's a good
suspect
idea.
what's happening.
Yeah.
But
Like, as far
just bouncing off you guys.
how the future behaves as if it is non-deterministic, right? It's not
because the
fixed.
sessions are all coming back the
that
same. The data's all coming back the same.
Yeah,
When I do December today, I do December a month from now. It's pretty much the same data.
Yeah.
So have you seen that scene in Doctor Who where he's like, time's not like a straight line, it's made of wibbly wobbly timey-wimey stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's really screwy, and we don't know. And anybody who says they do know is selling something.
Yeah, David, to answer, it feels no different to me. But I do know, and this is just from trial and error, that the farther out I go, and this might just be me, the less accurate I become. But it doesn't drop below a level of something like 65%. I haven't dropped below that level.
Anita, did you have a question? You got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, Daz. I really love how you write tasking for your targets. It's very precise. You say what the target is, when, and sometimes you also, I think, write the target is this and only this. I think I've seen you. It's very clear. Isn't there a way, because we have this problem of speculative targets, mystery targets, abstract, imaginary figures. Is there not a way to write a tasking so that RV or subconscious will give us the objective absolute truth? For instance, do angels exist? Give only the absolute truth, not what the tasker thinks, not what the remote viewer hopes to get. Is it possible to send RV to get complete truth and none of this?
Yeah, Daz is a master tasker.
Yeah, you can try. And I have been experimenting the last few months with a queue where I do say on there, if it was angels, for example, I would say the target is such and such angel. The viewer should disregard any myth, story, social constructs, and anything that is not an actual physical, non-physical angel kind of thing. Angel's a hard one because we don't know if they're, if they're physical or non-physical. But I do I write that into the queue now for the remote viewer to absolutely ignore all social constructs, myths, stories, religious beliefs, depending on what the target is. So I try to write that in the queue, and it does seem to work. And as I'm doing it, as with all my targets, I'm not allowing my mind to wander when I write the queue, because I know the intent from the tasker drives how good the person is. So I really do say to myself as I'm doing it, this is my intent. I only want the actual information, not anything else. So I'm very specific in doing that and taking my time in doing that.
There's also that thing about declaring what beliefs you have and taking a moment to think, like, how would I feel if the outcome was this or that? And do I want it to be this, or do I believe it'll be that? And
I do that quite often as well. And I don't know if you've seen that, Anita, but sometimes when I do taskings now, I will also write on the bottom, my intent is this and my belief system is this. So then afterwards, we have it hard coded on paper that to see or evaluate if my belief had some kind of impact on the RV data as well. But I try to get my intent and beliefs down on there as well now.
Okay, I have 2 follow-up questions. I'll take the second question first because it's more important. How about emotions? As you know, I'm not a trained remote viewer. I'm completely home crafted. So, like with sticks and duct tape. So I try to be my own tasker for all kinds of RV applications and target pools. I'm really bad at that. I have so much displacement. It's a mess, especially when I have target pools where I have a list of things and I randomize the order and then I get one because it hasn't technically been tasked by any person yet. It's an open question. So when I see the feedback and, oh, it's not what I thought it was, I'm just disappointed and I reject it. And then RV sees me in that moment and it's like, oh, you don't want that. Well, I'll give you something else. So it ends up that nobody is tasking this feedback. But anyway, this all boils down to emotions. I talk to subconscious, we have these dialogues and it keeps telling me, well, you don't want this picture. So I give you something else that makes you happy. It's RV is reading my emotions as the tasker. And I fail at that because very, very, very often I either don't want the feedback. I was hoping it was somebody else or something else that I was remote viewing, or I was expecting something else, or especially ARV where I try to, do the binary application on sports bets or such. I can do it on small money, but if I go try to really do it, it's too emotional because I want the money. I want to win money. I don't want this feedback picture of a cat. So RV is feeling that I don't want the cat, so it doesn't go there. How do you deal with the emotions? How do you take the emotions out? How do you make your RV not read your emotions and just give you what the target is and not try to see is it really, really what you want? Are you sure? Like, how do you do that? Because I can't.
For me, it just comes from my, I have to say it's from my, CRV training. It was very no nonsense, once I've ended. And we're all different. So we all have to approach this differently. I've never had a problem with emotions getting involved in any remote viewing target because I know it's not real. And I have no expectations. Like, I don't care if I hit the target at all. And I know it's hard for some people to understand, but I really do not care. I'm doing so much work. I don't even remember one RV session to the next what I've done. I think you might, absolutely. That's our mantra. But you just might be an emotion. You might be an emotionally connected person. I'm not. That's why it was very easy for me to do the missing people cases and to see the death and carnage that I saw, because I knew for me it wasn't real. It didn't impact me emotionally, but I know a lot of people that would absolutely destroy because they are emotionally invested. So I don't know how I can tell you to bypass that.
Like, how would you task things that you emotionally care about without messing it up?
Me? I don't know.
No, as I meant.
How would I what? Sorry.
How would you task about something that you're really emotionally invested in? Like, imagine that you get like a really scary medical diagnosis and you're tasking other remote viewers for a prognosis.
Oh, what, right? for me?
You really don't want them to say that you're going to die, right? You really don't. But if you are going to die intellectually, you do want to know that because it's useful information, right? But the last thing ego wants to know is that survival is compromised, right? So it's going to reject that and fight against it as much as it can, right? So how do you task that target in a way that is pure and separated from your emotional desires there?
I don't know, because I never would, and I never have done tasked anything personal. So it's just I don't know how I'd ever approach it.
Oh yeah,
that never works
I
out for me. That never works out for me. If I test something about me,
No,
they'll get me, but they'll
it was
doorknob
fucking
on
great.
something completely else.
I had some symptoms quite a while, a couple of years ago now, that were like potentially really scary. You know, you go on the internet, and it's like you've got 10 different types of super cancer and you'll die in about 10 minutes, and you're like, oh God. And I was like, fuck, going to the doctor. I'll just get some remote viewers. And Josh did me a year ahead health screen and was like, I'm getting, he didn't know it was me. He was just blind. I was like, do a gingerbread person on this thing and tell me about their health outlook for the next year. This thing. And he's like, I feel like the worry about this is a much bigger deal than the thing itself. It'll be fine. And I spent the rest of the year just like speeding everywhere and drinking too much. Like, I am invincible. It was fucking great. And then as soon as like the clock struck midnight and it's 2023, now I'm like, oh fuck. Uh-oh, I'm mortal again.
I did one for me on a court case, and it was me. It was clearly me, but he was completely doorknob. Like, oh, I got this guy. He's drinking scotch. He's rolling doobies. He's doing everything. Nothing to do with my court case though, but they were on target.
So you didn't like maybe you didn't want to know about the court case, really? Or maybe you would have lost the court case if you'd had the remote viewing data.
It's funny whenever like I have access to really good remote viewer. I mean, but whenever I have to test them on something about me, like I'm invested, it never works out. I don't know why that is.
Well, that's the trickster thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I don't even bother. I can bring in my curiosities and stuff, but whenever I bring me into the scenario, things get squirrely as shit.
It does for all of us, like with the money thing, trying to win small amounts is easy, but when you really want to win like the tens of millions, it's almost like the RV is like I've said this before, I think RV has a consciousness and it's alive in some way. And it kind of wags a finger and goes,
yeah, that's exactly what it does.
Yeah. It plays with us. It really does play with us.
I had a first timer effect with Lotto where I had like 5 numbers, but somehow I played in such a way where I didn't win fucking thing. It was like one of those it's like one
that's
of those
so
things
common. What usually happens
$1 down
is
this
that
way. Yeah.
What usually happens is person gets like every number is 1 digit off, so it proves that could have done it.
Yeah.
But
for me, it was a gambling thing because I'm not familiar with it. Oh, you didn't check this box. Like in any,
and you'll hit it perfectly, and then I mean I have it doing sports ARV where I'll get it correct, and then I'll screw up placing the bet. Because I'm not a gambler, I don't really understand the online betting platforms, and I swear quite often I press the button and then it doesn't place the bet anyway. And I go back and it's like, oh, well, at least I won this one. I lost that one where I did place the bet correctly, and then the one that I predicted correctly with ARV, doesn't exist.
I've seen it in horse races where I've done it like 3-4 of them, quick sessions, and I've seen horse like the race shuts down across the fucking globe. Oh, Australia. Oh, this race gets rained down. This one shuts down. This one closes. It's literally like getting the middle finger from Mother. It's I don't know what it is, but there's something there, and enough so to where I don't waste much time on it because it obviously doesn't want to work with me.
I mean, there's a good case to be made for the idea that this is about core beliefs and stuff that's in your subconscious, right? And stuff that we're not consciously aware of. Brett Stewart is going to bring out the version 2 of his masterclass, which is basically like how to do psychotherapy on yourself and dig out all of this stuff that gets in your way. So I don't know when that's going to be out, but the first one was very well received of the people who actually made it through, because it's hard. You have to sit there and introspect and go back to that time your teacher yelled at you when you were a kid, and all of you really are doing therapy on yourself basically. But it's these experiences we have when we're young that form core beliefs in the subconscious, which will then sit in the like if you have an AOL and you don't declare it, it sits in the pipe and it taints every piece of data that comes past it. Your core beliefs are part of that plumbing system as well, right? And they will filter data just the same way. So I know Brett is making a shit ton of money off financial ARV, and the way he's succeeding at that consistently is having done a whole bunch of inner work. So that's about the only thing I can recommend if you want to consistently
Hey,
nail
yeah,
that. He's the person I know who's
plug
got
me into whatever that is, Dave, because something happens when I deal with money, okay, in RV. It's drastic different. I've done games where it's literally I've done a year ahead, and I'll literally get the fucking teams that are like right up there, but then they don't go to the game. It's almost like I'm screwing with my own mind. It's very frustrating, which is why I don't mess with it, because it's like, well, I don't know what this is. I just know that, gosh, this works so well, and then when I plug it into this, things get really weird, So if there is something like that, I am open-minded. If there is something, I'm definitely willing to try, because I can't think of anything else of why it would be. You know what I mean? I don't know what else would be causing this, because like numbers.
Well, that's why they call it subconscious, numbers, right? It's outside of your awareness.
I can get numbers unless the numbers have something to do with me winning money.
Yeah,
like if I need numbers like a hotel room or a phone number,
I did this lottery thing where I was using ERV to get numbers, and I saw the first two out. I need 6 numbers, and obviously you win like £5 or something for getting 2 numbers correct. So £5 was obviously my limit, right? I saw them clear as day, crystal clear, nice sans serif typeface, absolutely unambiguous, perfect 2-digit numbers. And then after that, I just hit like a wall of noise. It was just like TV static. It was like, nope. There's nothing here. Yeah. It's not going to work. The whole process is fucked. Nothing's going to happen. It's not allowed. Yeah. Right.
I've done projects,
but I know you can get the numbers,
yeah.
right? So
yeah.
why do we not win the lottery?
Yeah.
Something else is going on. It's not because you can't remote view numbers, right?
Yeah. I've done straight doing numbers projects.
I think when I'm hearing you guys talking with so much passion about how you're not gaining something, anything, why it's not happening, I do think that it's a reinforcing belief again and again, and you are doing, and David are doing also. So it's my belief from an outside point of view that is happening here. I don't know.
Like chasing a dragon type of thing, or what? Is that what she's saying? Is that what she means by that?
I don't know.
Like you're just like, you're chasing this thing, and you're just never gonna. It's always right there, but just.
Sometimes results trump belief. Like I have done like hundreds and hundreds of experiments of trying to do it, and at some point you can't just say it's because I believe I can't win it, because it's not that. I'm trying hundreds. When you've done a couple of hundred experiments and you can't win, but you can hit everything else other than the lottery, it has to be something else other than you. Do you know what I mean? You have to look at the scientific data there.
Yeah.
No,
remote
even
viewing
that
where
it comes around to like, where it comes around to really bang you in the butt. I mean, like we had it done too, where it's not even like it just like where it offshoot. It's almost like where it worked doubly hard, where it's like, don't do that again. It's like it doesn't want you to work the system. I don't know. It's not my area.
And it's not just us. We've discussed this before. Ingo was an absolute genius at this kind of stuff, and he would like sit down and do thousands of trials, and he does. You can all look at his number of trials that he did. They're available. He did thousands upon thousands over a period of 4 or 5 years with Dr. Ed May, and he couldn't win the lottery. He could nail any other target, but he couldn't make money for himself with remote viewing. And he did. We have to be honest with this. He did die quite destitute in life, even though he had this amazing skill where he could see anywhere in the universe. And it's the same.
You got to have the lotto gods on side. You just got to have the lotto gods on your side.
Well, like Dave said with the numbers, I don't think it's a numbers thing. I think it's what are you using those numbers for?
Yes.
I think that's what it's about.
What are you
using those for?
Could it maybe be for protection? Because what would happen to a human being who is able to predict binary and sports? What's going to happen to that person? Think of it this way. Almost any other human being who finds out that this person can do that is going to become greedy and want to exploit. It's going to be extreme. Your life's going to be in so much danger. Someone is going to kidnap you and lock you up and make you do this for them, period. People do this for less. Huh?
You're not going to be remote viewing. I mean, you're rich. You get better things to do with your time.
No, someone's going to find out. They're going to look at your record on the website and say, how did you do that? Send the mafia over.
It could be
Your
that.
subconscious might be actually saving your life.
Yes.
That's what I'm wondering.
Or, as I've said in the past as well, and I'm an honest person, and I've said that if I did win 100 million on the lottery, I would never do any RV or anything ever again. Even though I love it, I would never do it again because I would just be doing all the things that I can't do in life, like travel the world. And maybe it's just not part of what my destiny or goal is for that to happen. It's just however much I want it in life to have 100 million, it might change me so much on a pathway that we're here to do that it just might not be viable.
Now, do you think with you and Edward and Dick and Miem and all you guys going after crypto collectively, do you think it gives you guys this kind of this group consciousness, collective upper hand or luck leverage or type of thing?
Yeah.
Because I think it definitely would better than going in alone. I would think.
Group work.
I would
Yeah. Once you get this, and I have to be honest, I did have a symbiotic relationship as well with Courtney and Dick when we were there for a while until Courtney got a little bit
too squirrely for you guys.
A little bit different than what we wanted to do. Let's put it that way. But once you find, and I had this kind of symbiotic relationship also in a couple other groups like the Hellfire group and stuff as well. And even just in talking with the guys on Discord, we have this kind of fun, symbiotic, trustful relationship, and I think it all comes down to trust. Once you have this symbiotic relationship where you trust a small group of people that you work with, that immensely benefits your remote viewing.
Yeah, elevates the whole
absolutely. And for me it's trust. I know that if I ever do a target for someone, and I've done them in the past where they've tasked me and I don't really trust a person, my RV on those targets is always bad.
Oh yeah. I've had situations where like long term, like where I kind of got screwed by someone in the end, where I was trying to do pre-cognitive work, and it wasn't even that the mechanism was strange.
Yeah.
Things were squirrely, and I honest to God, Daz, and I could be wrong. I could have just been off, but I honestly believe that my subconscious knew that things weren't going to work out at the end of that relationship.
Yeah.
And I wasn't looking to benefit them when they were going to kind of screw me in the end. I mean, again, I have no problem being wrong. I am wrong on occasion. So, but that's my gut feeling on that.
Yeah. And as I've said to these guys in these talks many times, my belief system changes, but my current standing belief system is that to me, it feels like there's something behind the entire RV process that is conscious and alive. I just cannot get away from that fact.
I talk to it like it's a person.
Yeah.
We have
maybe
dialogues.
I should start calling it RV, Anita, like you do.
Yeah, I just call it RV.
Mr. RV, sir.
Oh, my Mr. That's like mine's like a girl, like me. But I honestly start to think that RV is just astral projection. It's so similar, and it really would make sense for me, at least, not using CRV. It's as if I'm sending a part of me to the target site, and it's there, and it's really like lucid dreaming or astral projection or OBE.
I think
it could be just but an element of it could be as simple as that. So I started reading some books on astral projection to see, is there anything here that would explain or benefit?
It all helps.
Yeah,
it all helps. And like I've said to the guys as well, because I have a background in classical psi before I found RV, there is so much stuff that you could do and develop and see the universe and explore within classical psychic techniques, which could or has the potential to outperform or even help your RV development if you looked at it. What we're doing here with RV is a very small, very minute niche of what's going on out in the larger world there. And we're, it may be different for you. You may actually be doing more like astral projection if you feel you're actually at targets. I don't. That isn't how it works for me. But I think we're so malleable as human beings. We have such a skill set. That's why I think we can't pin down what RV is, because we all have these unique talents, and this whole skill is malleable, transformative, and changing. That it is different for all of us. That's why we can't pin it down.
just want to say, Surfing the Psychic Internet. I know you don't promote it much to us, but it's a very interesting book, and it'll give you some insight into some other
things,
kind of things that are in the psychic realm that could be done, things to look into beyond remote viewing.
Yeah,
I just want to say, I think it's a good book.
Thank you. Yeah, I try not to promote it. I don't know why, but I don't. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I think we should wrap up this evening. I want to say that it's been a fantastic discussion this evening and fantastic work. And thanks to both the Davids as well for what you did there. For both of you, it was very brave and it was very informative, and it was great to see and have that on record. So well done on that.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for the PowerPoint, Dave. Thank you for teaching me some stuff.
What we'll do is we'll try to arrange another chat sometime in April. It's a bit weird because of we got Easter and stuff, and I'm away at the end of April going to Egypt again. But we'll try to get another one in anyway in a few weeks' time as soon as we can before I go and stuff. So yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for your participation. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see each other on Facebook and all the regular places.
Thanks, Des.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.
Nice to see you all again.
Take care.
Bye-bye.